All right, so tonight is the last session for sustainable development. So you wouldn't you wouldn't have me to talk your ears off because as my students normally say that I can really, really, really talk. Right? All right, so tonight's session, what we're going to focus on is understanding the concept of agro-processing. Turn my phone on silence. Of agro-processing and value addition to promote the use of local fruits, vegetables as a value-added or export-ready product. To focus on the creation of novel product and methods of food additives and preservatives. Well, I make a mistake and put it twice. So food additives and preservatives. All right. So let me begin. What is agro-processing? And everyone by now know agro-processing is basically when you turn a local commodity or fresh commodity into a different form. And that is basically termed as extending the shelf life in a different form. So if you have something like green bananas, you peel them, you slice them, or you shred them, you dry them in the sun, or if you have a dehydrator, not the oven, because oftentimes I hear people talking about drying stuff in the oven. If you're drying stuff in the oven, you have to ensure that you turn it down to between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, right? So you will have to put a thermometer inside to ensure that it maintains, it doesn't go about 60 degrees Celsius. Anything above that would be coagulating or cooking the product, not dehydrating it. So, right, so you dehydrate, you sun dry, you dehydrate your green banana, then you put it in a blender if you have a mill, or you ground it and you ground it and you can ground it into flour, right? So it's turned into a powdered form. So we have banana flour. And from that banana flour, you can make porridge with the coarser part. You can make muffins, you can make cake, you can make dumpling, you can make cookies, you can make pizza. And from further research, you can read that banana is a resistant starch and it's very good. It's very healthy. And if you read about green banana, you will know about all the minerals and nutrients that are found in banana. So if you utilize things like banana and other flour over the wheat flour, you know you will be have interesting something that is a bit more nourishing than the wheat flour. But we'll talk about that a bit later on. So agro-processing is basically transforming products from agriculture, originating from agriculture, forestry, as well as fisheries, right? Turning that raw product into agriculture products. So turning those raw commodities into agriculture products, right? The new products, therefore, has value in 3 different dimensions. And when we talk about 3 different dimensions, we can have primary value added product. This is basically harvesting your lettuce, washing it, packaging it for the supermarket, harvesting your callaloo, cutting it up. Well, obviously you would clean and wash and disinfect it, and sanitize, and you would cut it up and then you package it, vacuum seal, whatever the case would be, for the supermarket, right? So this is one stage, a primary value added product, right? Then you have the processing or the extraction stage. Now with this, you can do things like you pulp your juice. So you have passion fruit pulp, pineapple pulp, soursop pulp, whatever it is. So pulping, these are the things would fall under extraction stage, right? Preparation of minimal processing. So you could make your jams, your jellies, your pepper sauce, whatever sauce it be, your mango chutney. These are the different stages, right? So also on the processing stage or extraction stage, you will have your flour in terms of you just dry it, you ground it into flour, right? So agro-processing is especially important as it provides a sustainable economic growth, poverty reduction, and it ensures food security. Because take for example, you have 5 pounds of sweet potato, and you don't have use for them right now, right? And instead of you store them where they will spoil, they have a short shelf life. What you can do is dry them and turn them into flour. So you will have the sweet potato available in a different form. And that is what you talk about food security. Because remember, food security, one of the pillars of food security is having access to it and being able to utilize it, right? So agro-processing creates or enhance agricultural productivity. It increase farm household income in terms of if your family is involved in farming, and oftentimes, you can run into the situation where you don't have market for certain commodity that you grow. It might have in excess, or you might have slightly damaged one. And I want to bring out this slightly damaged, because what we don't want is you taking rotten stuff and thinking that you're going to turn it into a value added product, because the same produce that you're using to turn into a value added product, it must be wholesome the same way that you're going to provide for a fresh market. So unless you don't want your end product to have a bad taste, you must focus on these things. So if you have excess or slightly damaged, you can have sweet potato that is broken, can be packaged. It might have cut yam, have a cut, something like this sort. You instead of you leave this to spoil, or if you don't have animals to feed it back to, you can then turn it into a value-added product. You have excessive amount of tomatoes, you can turn it into things like tomato powder, you can do sun-dried tomatoes, you can make tomato sauce, and so on. So you have to try to be as sustainable as possible. So you don't let anything waste. You try to utilize everything, right? So some challenges in agro-processing. Some challenges that we would encounter is one, it is costly. Two, it requires training. Three, you need to be a critical thinker, because if you have, let's say, a lot of carambola and you just like, oh, I can't do nothing with it because it's just there, or an excessive amount of soursop, what would I do with it? Nothing, right? So you have to be a critical thinker. You have to be able to think outside the box to take that and turn it into a value-added product. It could either be for your household so that you could have constant supply of food in different farms, or it can be for sale to a market or individuals in your community, right? These things you must take into consideration. You must have proper HACCP and food safety protocols, right? And these are some challenges, because oftentimes when folks are developing products, they develop the products the same method as way they go about cooking in the kitchen in a haphazard condition, not thinking that, okay, if today I'm doing processing, you cannot cook. You cannot cook in here. You cannot have a cat running through the house. You can't have dog running through the house. You can't have the kitchen door wide open. Your friend come in and visit, you sit down, you talk, you go outside, you do something, you come back. No, you have to think about HACCP and food safety protocol. And I'm going to leave that part for when Theo come, when she's talking about food safety. So I'm just going to list it there and that's it. You must have good manufacturing practices, right? You must, as I said, hygiene. Hygiene is very important in terms of if you're using a gloves, you cannot use a gloves like what you think you're going to start processing in the morning and have the gloves. Once the gloves is dirty, you change it. Have a nick, you change it. Even if you're using a gloves, and when I do stuff, because I have nails, when I using a gloves, I scrub my nails in first, and then I put my hands in the gloves before. I scrub my hands before placing it in the glove. So you have to think about hygiene. You can't have on armpit and in the kitchen walking, doing jams and jellies, and you're sweating and you take the sweat and you no, you can't do those sort of things. So all these things you have to take into consideration. Other challenges might be an inconsistent or insufficient supply of raw material. Whatever product you decide to do, ensure that you always have raw material. If you have to invest in a deep freeze and store them, you must do these sort of things. Seasonality and poor quality of raw material supply. Yes, we have seasonality in terms of if you're going to make a product from sorrel, sorrel is only available at a certain time. So in case you need sorrel for your product, you need to purchase it and ensure that you either find some way of preserving it and storing it. Like myself, I use sorrel for one of my product, and I always have sorrel in my deep freeze, right? Poor quality raw material, yes, oftentimes, and we go back to post-harvest practice. Oftentimes you purchase raw materials from farmers and they come in a poor quality stage because, one, if you're purchasing things like peppers and they put them in a either black plastic bag or they put them in one of those feed sack, obviously during transportation they're going to be bruised, developing heat. By the time you take them out and ready to use them, they have an off scent, right? So this can create an off flavor, right, in your product, in your final product. So you have to take all these things into consideration. I personally am very straight up. I am not taking that. I am returning it back to you, or you have to replenish what you. I'm not going to take that loss in terms of your poor handling of your produce to get to me. No, I personally am not going to take it from you. That's why I specifically buy things from certain individuals who I know would actually provide me with quality if I don't grow it for myself, right? Inappropriate or obsolete processing and ancillary equipment, yes. I mean, I don't even want to talk about in 2023, people still filling pepper sauce with funnel and cup. I mean, come on, get with the program. If we're talking food safety, if we're talking quality, if we're talking standards, you cannot be producing pepper sauce and green seasoning and in the kitchen with a bottle, your bottle and the funnel and a cup, and you're knocking to get it into the container. It's time that you get away from that and buy a bottle filler. These things are simple. They're online. They have manual bottle filler. You purchase that. You cannot be doing pepper sauce and you still have a kitchen blender. So you are blending small 5 cups, 2 cups in portion by itself. This is where you're going to have inconsistency, right? Because you have to think blending one batch with the right consistency, the right amount of ingredients, and so on. So you cannot be operating and telling me that you're putting stuff on the market out there for me to consume, but you have inappropriate or obsolete processing or ancillary equipment, old-time equipment, outdated equipment. And we need to do better than that if we are talking quality. And I don't want to get into where oftentimes I go to the supermarket and you're seeing one person pepper sauce, but they have 3 different colors because of they do not have consistency. And further on in the presentation, we will talk how to ensure that you have quality in terms of having consistency, the consistent taste. Sometimes you buy a pepper sauce this week, by the next week you go back and buy the pepper sauce, it have a different taste. And they're going to tell you, oh, well, I got the pepper from somebody. No, it goes back to standardizing your recipe. And if you standardize your recipe, even if you're sick and your daughter or your son have to do the production for you, because you have a standardized recipe, they will be able to do it with ease. But if you are accustomed to say, let me try in some and taste it, taste. No, that's not how you go about developing a product or continuously creating your product. You have to think quality and you have to think consistency. And we'll touch a base on that one go down. Poor and inconsistent quality of processed product, and that will be coming from inappropriate, obsolete processing and even not having a standardized recipe, right? Weak or non-existent developed market. Yes, we do not have a developed market. I mean, I grew up in the time farming when we had things like Eastern Caribbean Agency, where we used to take our plums and avocado and what's not the Eastern Caribbean Agency, and we had marketing board, and you had a list. When you get in there, you could see it had a board, a chalkboard on the ground where you will know this week they're buying at that price, that week they're buying at that price. We don't have that. We do not have a marketing information system. If you are in Trinidad, you can go online and NAMIS, and you can see what is being sold this week, what is being available, the prices being purchased at, the prices being sold at, and it's far too long that we do not have a marketing system. So we have, some people have this different price, that different price, and we have problems. And another thing with folks, they look at someone product, and let we not go down the road of pricing because that's not even my area, but I know a lot of people look at a different person product and they just price it. They're not even sitting down and calculate their pricing the correct way. They're just gonna look, this person selling pepper sauce for $10. Let me put on 50 cents on mine. Or let me sell it for $9.50, 50 cents less. These are the things, and not taking into consideration whether you have a quality product or product that is not even worth to be on the shelf, let alone anybody kitchen to be consuming to the stomach. And I cannot stress on how much time I'm going to the supermarket and I'm seeing these pepper sauce with all these water to the top. That is because you're still using funnel and cup to fill these bottles, and after a while you can't get it in, so obviously you pour water. So then when that settles, you have all the water settling at the top, they're watching you, right? And we have, if we are talking about quality, consistency, and you want people to support local, we have to do things that is of quality and standards so individual can support local, right? Also, inappropriate packaging material. Oh my God. How much time do we see wine in pepper sauce bottle and rum bottle? It's not that we don't have access to the right bottle now. We have access to the right bottle. Yes, I know we talk about sustainable and recycling, but if you are talking quality and you want your product to reach or fetch the good price, you can be packaging wine in rum bottle or pepper sauce bottle or peanut bottles. You have to use wine bottle because when you think wine, you think elegance, and you have the nice, the shape of the bottle and the sleeve and all these sort of things. But no, your friend come over, you pull out somebody bottle of wine and it's in a rum bottle. You find under your cupboard someone there's no, I buy it. But we have to start thinking quality, right? Inappropriate in packaging material is not good, right? Yes, there's high cost of packaging, but if you have a quality product and you have a proper packaging, then you can charge your price. You understand? We talk about non-existent market and a lack of technical support for the agro-industrial sector. Yes, there's a lack of technical support. I not aware of anyone doing proper training on using preservatives in your food, in the products that you're making. We know when you're using sodium benzoate, you're only supposed to use 1%, right? 1%. How do you know these individuals are using that if they don't even have a standardized recipe and they're using a measuring spoon and they're throwing it in? And then we're wondering why there's a high rise of things like cancer and what's not. And we know Vincent have a mentality. If somebody tell you use 1 teaspoon, nah, I want this preserved properly, so I using 2 teaspoons. Now you're causing it, that's improper use, and you're causing harm to others. So as I said, I have not seen a training about where they talk about using proper, how to use proper, use preservatives properly and secure, those sort of things. So yes, there's a lack of technical support in the agro-industrial sector. Advantages of agro-processing. Sustainability, right? So you would utilize everything. Let me give you a little example. So Christmas time, when I'm using sorrel, literally nothing waste, nothing literally waste. So if I have a sorrel, if I grow any, obviously I will save the seed. The husk from where the seed is located into is going to go back into composting. Then I am going to take, well, I hardly make sorrel juice. I'm not going to joke about that. I'm not a juice lover, so I don't make sorrel juice. But I make sorrel liqueur every year, right? For my friends, I share it with my friends, and I have for somebody, an individual come by. So I make my sorrel liqueur. Very easy to make. So I have my sorrel, I have my cardamom, my clove, my allspice, my ginger, my lemon, my orange peel, my bay leaf. I said clove already. Yes, something makes missing. Yeah, and I'll put it in a pot with my cinnamon sticks. I don't know if I said that. I'll put in a pot with my sorrel and I'll boil it. Then I'll add some sugar to it so I can create like a light syrup. And then I'll strain that off. And then I'll add my rum, so I have sorrel liqueur, right? Then from that remain now, I will take out my cinnamon sticks and all those other things that I put into it, and then I will blend that. That is either going to use to make cakes or cheesecake or it's going to make a kind of sauce to pour over my turkey. So nothing from my sorrel waste. So you have to think about that along that same line. Try to utilize it. Ensure that whatever you harvest, you can utilize it without creating waste. So you can use less and save more, right? So another advantage of agro-processing, it enhances agriculture productivity and increase farm household incomes. Yes, you have a year-round availability of safe, nutritious food, so you focus on food security. You can have job creation for rural and urban youth. There's a production of fortified food, because this is where you can add things like vitamin A or vitamin E and those sort of things when you're making your product. Because I don't know how much people know, when you pasteurize things like juice, you always denature the things like vitamin C. So then you would add back in vitamin C. So you would buy your juice and you see added vitamin C. That is because due to pasteurization, they would have to add back vitamin C. And if you look at most of your flour and what's not, it's branded fortified, because things like vitamin D and so is added, right? So also you can have continuous production of indigenous food, whereby improving its standards. I mean, I'm happy for tomorrow because I'm heading to Rabacas. I can get modongo because I love modongo, but for life of me, I've never tried to make modongo bakes or anything like that, but I love it. Normally my family over the river would actually make it for me, put it in a bag, and I'll put it in the freezer, and every time I need modongo bakes, I'll take out some and I'll farm them and I'll make them and so on. But if we train more young people in making these things, we can maintain the indigenous dishes over a period of time, so it can be passed on to others. I mean, my grandfather was not Vincent, and one of the things that he used to always cook is corn cuckoo with okra and steamed red fish. And I can do that. And I mean, when his relatives come to visit and what's not, these are things that they would show me and what's not from his country, what they would use as the indigenous food. So if we need to do is pass these things down so that youths can actually continue the production of indigenous food, rather than, I mean, in the next 5 years, the way youths go in KFCs, it go because nobody studied indigenous food. I mean, in Barley, they have things like blackfish. I don't eat blackfish, but there are individuals who would be interested in things like these. I mean, I grew up making bam bam, right? I mean, how many youths can actually make bam bam and dukana and farine and all these sort of things? So we have to look at the price of farine. It's not because cassava is very expensive. It's because the individuals who make farine is one in a few, right? So we need to focus back on improving the standards and continuous production of indigenous food, because we can't wait till Independence Day to get dukana or potato pudding. I grew up making these things. Every weekend we had to make potato pudding and dukana, because all when we harvest the sweet potato for traffickers and for the supermarket, the small ones were either brought home to steam and eat with fried fish, and the rest you can use to make your dukana and your pudding. And I would get pudding to take to school and these sort of things. So we have to focus on passing on these indigenous dishes to our youths. So training in that would be very, very ideal, right? Large quantities of agricultural waste produced can actually be transformed into useful products, right? So you have the waste, like for example, you're doing sweet potato. You have the waste, you can actually transfer it to actually feeding animals. You can actually mix it with other things to make pellets for animals. Yeah, but you have to focus on which animal you're actually feeding sweet potato to as well, because excess amount of sweet potato to pigs is not really ideal, because they don't break down the forget what the enzyme in that. So it's better to just slightly cook it and then give it to them, right? So because you remember they have simple stomach like us, right? So we can make animal feed and we can make compost. So you can utilize all the waste to make something. And if I was having a discussion with a past student of mine, and she was getting into making what those things are, soup mix, those bags, and I'll go for one. And when we take the break, I'll bring one, because I brought some things here to show you all, but I sitting here remembering that I didn't bring that. So when on the break, I'll go for that. So she was saying, what can I do with the excess amount of peels? So I said, you can turn it into compost. And then she said, then yeah, I could sell it to the neighbors. I said, Oh, I thought you was going to use the plant back. So she said, no, 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 no. My yard good for right now, so she'll sell it to the neighbor. So this is another way of generating income, right? Because somebody always want compost, right? Then she would proceed to ask me how to make the compost. So I said, so you for real, you don't know how to make the compost, but you're already planning to sell it. So yeah, I taught her how to make the compost. So you would also reduce importation, especially importation of things that we can do. You can do. We are a country that has a lot of fruits. Why is it that we still importing jams? We can make that's another thing I grew up making, guava jams. And I mean a lot of people, and we go back to consistency, make guava jam these days, but it's so sweet. You understand? And that is because, having a standardized recipe and um we can talk about that later on down, having a bricks meat and those sort of things because let's say for example, so we talk about it now. If I'm going to make something from passion fruit, remember there are different types of passion fruit, different varieties, and some of them have a higher bricks than some. So what you want to do before you start producing your product is to measure the bricks. So once you measure the bricks, this can give you a guide of one, use less sugar, because if the bricks is extremely high, 20 something and above going up there, right? You have to use less sugar. Now, if you have a bricks that is 15 and less going down there because it's more acidic, it's tart, then you would have to increase your amount of sugar. And these are the things that agro-processors are not paying attention to. They just go, get the guava, throw it in a pot, and they make it. That's how we make guava jam. That's not what you have to think about. Other people is going to consume this. And if you want your product to, trust me, I don't want to be a bias, so please, nobody told feelings. I just speak frankly. I personally buy Matuk's guava jam because that's the only guava jam that I think is palatable or close to what my grandmother used to make. I don't have time to make guava jam like before, right? And I do not have access to a guava tree. But if we sit down and make proper guava jam, and another thing, guava cheese. When is the last time have you seen guava? I'm telling my students about guava cheese, and it's like, Miss, not name so. And I was like, oh my God, I had to go and Google it and show them how guava cheese look. And they're like, oh, nobody don't eat that anymore. Yes, but there are people who would want guava cheese because contrary to what people might be thinking in agro-processing, we can't think agro-processing alone in a box. We also have to think gastronomic agriculture or gastronomic tourism because we have tourists coming into our island between October and April. And if marketed properly, you would have individual purchasing your stuff. And I'm for a moment, I'm wondering, why is it our island is not focused on gastronomic tourism in terms of, okay, these tourist boats are coming in at a certain time. You have Stubbs, you have Greg's, you have other communities. Why not, when the boats are coming? Each village could organize something so the bus goes straight from the port today. So you stop in Stubbs and it's everything mango, mango jam, mango jelly, mango wine, mango rice, everything mango, mango fudge, mango upside down cake, everything mango. But that would require training and you just can't make any old mango thing hapsy, scrapsy. You have to be making it properly. So these are things that we have to focus on. So agro-processing and gastronomic tourism goes hand in hand because you have to think about ways of actually tapping into the tourism industry. But everybody is so divided. So it's not happening, right? Right. So the agro-processing industry consists of various subsectors, which include meat processing. So yes, we can do meat processing. And when I'm talking meat processing, I am not only talking about making things like chicken, ham, and bacon, and ham from pork, and those sort of things, and salami and whatnot. But I'm also talking about meat cuts. And I am so disappointed that only beside Midway Butcher and Rodney's meat, you can't get meat cuts anyway. I mean, I don't eat these meat here, but I pay attention to these things because we have a lot of hotels are being established. Whether they're going to be functional, I have no time with that discussion. But because they are going to be established, we have to focus on providing things locally. Most of these restaurants, when you talk about meat cut, lamb chops, and so on, is what is imported. But our meat here, if our meat here are better than what we import because we still have grass-fed animal. We do not have factory-fed animal. And the problem is here, butchers think selling meat is going, you want 2 pounds, chop, 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 bag. No, but who doing a nice sirloin, a nice rump roast and the different meat cuts? So when we're talking meat processing, we have to think meat cuts because that is definitely needed. If you want just baby back ribs or ribs just for doing nice pork ribs in white wine and so on, you have to go and buy the imported one because they hardly have any local one that is done like that. So we have to think when we're talking meat processing, we have to think meat cuts, right? So dairy products, things like cheese and yogurt and ice cream and so on. I mean, there's an ice cream that I would like to try. I think it's in Beckway. I'm looking at the flavors and I'm intrigued by the different flavors and I would love to try it, right? Besides, we have Frisco, yes, but you could have gourmet ice cream in terms of ice cream that are made different. They are basically high end. They are different, and the quality is much creamier and delicious, and that could be provided for a different clientele. No, you can't tell me that about the icy thing them and you want to put on the price of premium ice cream. No, right? So we have different dairy products. There's something that I am actually, I don't want to say experimenting because I do experiment a lot and then I will just pass it on to somebody. But cheese, I love cheese. And I have invested in a cheese press. I have not started using it as yet. I've also invested in things like stuff to make goat cheese. I've imported the cultures and what's it. I have like small molds and I have the big cheese press. And the first one I'm going to do is the mozzarella cheese because I made a regular soft cheese before, right? So I just need to do other things. So I'm going to make mozzarella cheese. I love things like feta. I love Havarti cheese. I love Gouda. I love brie. I just love cheese. So, right? So because I love it and I want to make it as natural and healthy as possible and reduce the salt and all these sort of things, I am going to actually focus on developing cheese for my own use. And eventually, if I want to, somebody want to know how to do it, I will share it with them and so on, right? So there are different dairy products that we can get involved into. I get my goat milk from Bobby Balcom Farm in Georgetown. So there's a possibility of getting these things done, right? There's fruit and vegetable processing, and I don't want to talk about how much fruit waste in St. Vincent. So let's not talk about jar plum that most youths don't even know what that is, and that would make a lovely wine. There's so many things that we can do with vegetables. Fruit to make fruit wine. We should be focused on fruit wine. I'll tell you this. My research is focused around cocoa wine. One, because cocoa has a higher polyphenol than red wine and green tea, right? And cocoa is something that is grown in the Caribbean. And if you read further research, you will talk about cocoa would be because of the polyphenols is good for cardiovascular system and so on. And you know, we normally say, well, research so that you drink a glass of red wine because of the resveratrol for the heart, but we have cocoa that is even better. So my research is based around cocoa wine. So I'm developing a cocoa wine, which is easy, 1 to 3. I've done it many times before, but my research goes further in terms of adding CO2 to it. So I ran into a little bit of problems when I was in Trinidad and I ran out of time. So I'm back home and I'm supposed to finish working on my project here. And then I'm going to submit it so that I can graduate next year, right? So I have till December to submit my project. So as I said, it's to get the correct amount of CO2 in it so that it would have a nice mouthfeel, taste good and what's not. So when I'm setting that up, I have to at least know my bricks because at the end of my getting my wine, based on my bricks, it will determine if I'm going to get a nice dry wine, which I want because I want my wine to be like a brut, right? Because I'm adding CO2, so like a brut. I don't want it to be sweet. So it has to, you have to focus on the bricks. I have to ensure when I'm setting it up, the starting gravity is where it's supposed to be so that at my end result, I would have an alcohol content of at least 12 to 14%. So my setup brick's supposed to be at least 20, 21, 22, under 23. bricks when I'm setting it up. Anything over 23, I'll start going towards getting a dessert wine, which is sweet and so on, right? So you can do many alcohol beverages. I remember back in 2018, I think, right, before I did any sort of advanced studies as it relates to value addition. And just for the record, my studies, my master's is in value addition for food and nutrition security. So before that, I was already experimenting with value addition, doing stuff because out of boredom on my own. So I remember working with farmers cooperatives, and because I mentioned alcohol beverages, I remember I was focused around alcohol beverage. So we did with some of those farmers cooperatives, we did a line of punch cream. So we had ginger punch cream, which tastes like Christmas in your mouth. So I did that with the cooperative that I am a part of, which is Bible Cooperatives. Well, when I was more active, I haven't visited them in a long time. Shh. If anybody's on here, when I get time, I'll visit. Right? So we did ginger punch cream. With the one in Mount Pleasant, we did carrot rum cream. We did soursop punch cream, dasheen, breadfruit, banana, and so on. So these things, when they are ripe, especially when breadfruit are overripe, it makes a nice punch. So you can add alcohol to it, so you have a punch the cream, right? So these are different alcohol beverage, and the way it's been preserved is using the alcohol and obviously sugar that is in it, right? Chocolate and chocolate, cocoa and chocolate confectionery. These are things we can do, and later on down I would show you things that you can do. You can do bakery products from, if you want to focus on things like the composite flour, you can do muffins and cakes and what's not, because you will be providing for a different clientele or different customers, especially those people who have allergic reaction to gluten and so on. I think celiac disease, right? They would actually appreciate bakery products made from things like plantain, banana, breadfruit, dasheen, edo, yam, these flours, right? And then you can also prepare animal feed with these skins and all these things that are left over from your processing. So you have to think sustainability, right? So one of the things you should have is critical thinking, right? So I'm going to show you some pictures, and you're just going to take about 2 minutes maximum, and you're going to tell me, if you have access to those, what are some things that you will create. So this is the first slide. So we have soursop, we have carambola, we have mango, we have pumpkin, and we have aloes. What would you create if you have these?
We could get so popsicles, ice cream, juice and wine from the carambola, jam, ice cream from the mango, the pumpkin. Well, we can do so many things. We could also make wine. Well, the fritters may not be it may not have a long shelf life. The aloes, you can do cream, you can do gel. You can do little things like as a medication, you know.
Okay.
Turn it into a medicine.
All right. So everything I saw there, I just saw wine. Maybe because I'm into alcohol development and those sort of things. I just saw wine with everything. Aloe wine, pumpkin wine, everything wine. But there's so much other thing that he can do. As you said there, ice cream, you can do candied fruits, you can do dry fruits, you can do flour with green mango, you can do powder with green mango, and you would, if you read, you would see that using green mango in terms of a powder form, how many nutrients and so things it have, and it's very good for your body if you have diabetes, hypertension, and so on. These are things that you can read. India use a lot of these things that we don't basically utilize. You can also use pumpkin to make flour. You can use aloe in making drinks, different type of drinks. So you could use the aloe to make drinks, and if you can flavor to things like carambola and flavor to the mango and those sort of things. So yes, you have to think outside the box and be as creative as possible. And I see the chat lighting up. I'm not sure if people putting information there. Yes, somebody said wine, pulps, yes, sorbet, yeah, sorbet, right. All right, so Patrice Lingy, you can message me in the WhatsApp chat after, and I can give you some guidance towards regarding the studies. Yes. I didn't read all the message because, as I said, tonight presentation kind of long. Right, so this other one, what would you make with these things? You have cassava, you have sweet potato, 2 different variety. You have plantain, you have pineapples, and you have honey. So I'm thinking granola, right? So you have sweet potato granola, cassava granola, right? I'm thinking dehydrated pineapples, because you know that's a big thing in the supermarket right now, right? Chips. What else? Let me see what people put in the chat. Chips, flour, mango chutney, yes, jam, cake, fries. Right. So you have to find plantain flour, right? So you have to find ways and means of utilizing what you have. So you have to think outside of the box, right? Why is my slide sticking? Right? So these are some examples of underutilized West Indian commodities, right? Because when we eat in pumpkin, we either make fritters, we make soup, we just steam pumpkin. But there's so many other things that you can use pumpkin to do. So pumpkin, plantain, watermelon, sorrel, carambola, papaya, golden apple. Golden apple can be made with used to make so much thing, especially green golden apple. I mean, we need to utilize what we have rather than have it wasted. I think St. Vincent should be an island that is producing a lot of fruit wines because we have so much fruit. But we have to think about producing fruit wine properly as well, because you have to think about export quality. Arroys, coconut. So when we talk about arroys, we're talking about things like Dashin, Tanya, Edos. All these are basically underutilized, right? We just normally custom using it one way and we continue along that line without thinking of changing what we can do with them, right? So we are going to develop products. We have to think about quality. Quality is is most important, and that is what you should always think about when you are producing a product, right? When you get into product development, quality should be the main thing. So when you're checking for quality, you're thinking of aroma. We do things like sensory evaluation, where I remove some of those things from the slide there because that would take it too long, where you would have individuals and you do a hedonic scale, whether they like, dislike, and so on. And then you don't let them know what exactly they're consuming, but you can number it and so on. And then they would give a feedback, because if you tell them, it can actually give you a wrong feedback and those sort of things, right? So when I was doing I started with my flavored rum, infused rum. What I did, I had a rum tasting, and based on those that score 90 and above, that's what I went forward with. So I have 15 different flavors. No, they are not in the supermarket. They will never be in the supermarket. So I developed, my rum is actually for tourists. So yes, they're the cruise ship bird. I'm supposed to take some out to the airport since last year, but I'll be honest, I've been busy with other things, and I haven't done processing the way that I normally used to do it. I keep telling everybody when I finish my studies, I'll get into processing, but then I get caught up in doing other projects. So as of December, I am going to get back into processing. I do have products. I always have products. So as I said, it's at the cruise ship board. So between October and April, I am good to go. I also do packages for things like wedding, little birthdays, christening, and so on. So as I said, I did I had a 2 or 3 rum tasting, and I did my hedonic scale, and those who score 90 and above, I went forward with. So I went forward with things like sulfur lava, eruption 1979, which I also do have a eruption 2021. It just hasn't been bottled yet. This one has a different effect because I witnessed it for myself. So what I use agent sticks that are that you use when you're doing Hennessy, so you have the smoky effect and those other things. I have sorrel, I have spice, I also have an aged spice, sulfur water, which is a ginger, hengeber gold, which is a ginger, but it's aged, and other things are added to it when you're actually infused in it. I have rosemary and cinnamon and so on, right? So those that didn't make it was things like soursop, one, because back then I was having a problem with the filtering of the soursop. I didn't like the look, so that wasn't it for me. The mango, because the mango I was using at the time was imperial, and you didn't get the mango taste coming out in the rum. So what I use no essence. I don't use anything artificial. So what I infuse are fresh fruits and spices. So it would take a while, and then you do your filtering and those sort of things. So to test quality, you have to think about aroma, because if I open a bottle of cocoa rum, I must smell cocoa, or must smell have a chocolate effect there, right? Or coffee rum, you must smell coffee. So the aroma and the taste, the sensory evaluation and the mouth feel and all these sort of things. So how you go about checking quality, right? The appearance in terms of size, the dimension, the weight, the volume, so on. So the appearance is the first thing. So if you're supposed to have a wine, it's supposed to be nice and clear and, nice clarity, because one of the things that you do with wine, when you get it in your glass, you swirl it, you must see the light be able to reflect through the wine and those sort of things. But if you have a wine and it's cloudy, you can't serve that in a restaurant. You have to be serving that home in a plastic glass. Ain't no light going through that. So you have to think quality, appearance, right? Then based on what else you're doing, texture, right? If it's supposed to be firm, if it's supposed to be soft, if it's supposed to be crispy, and the thickness. So for example, those are doing cakes, and if it's not have a nice texture and what's that, it's more of a hard dough or dumpling or heavy bread or those sort of things, then you wouldn't have proper quality, and people would not gravitate, because there are some cake bakers, not hitting anybody, but they're very, very, very good on decorating. But that is also your cake is only to take pictures. You're there not cut into it and eat it, because you're going to either be eating crackers or you're going to be eating dumpling. So you have to think about the texture, right? Flavor and taste, and that is very important. There's some cheesecake bakers where they say they have this flavor, until now you cannot figure out what flavor they have, right? And for example, there are one or two folks who are doing flavored pepper sauce. Until now, you cannot taste the flavor. All you're tasting is pepper, right? The heat, you're tasting heat. So if you are going to do something that is flavored, right, you have to know about creating your different blends, so that individual will be able to taste it and not just be having heat in your mouth, right? Right? Aroma and smell. These are things that are appealing, whether you're doing something that has a high aroma, want to smell good. And aroma is very important here, because the last thing you want to do is open a bottle of pepper sauce and it smells rancid. Normally, that's a major turn off. Or when you open it, it goes, oh, that's problems, right? And little further down, we'll talk about the pH that would affect these sort of things, and getting the pH right, because the pH could also extend the shelf life of the product on the shelf, right? Quality continues in terms of clarity, the amount of suspended particle in the wine. And even though we want clarity in wine, one of the things I don't like or see people do, and I really don't like, please don't strain my wine with any sort of cheesecloth. 2023, we're not back in 1823, we're in 2023. So we can't be doing these things with cheesecloth and expecting me. So I don't know how often this cheesecloth washing. I don't know how you might be washing your cheesecloth with all your clothes, your underwear and everything, and then you going to run my wine through this? No, please. So get with the program. Get a wine filter, or you can use things like bentonite clay, where it will pull all the sediments to the bottom, and then you would siphon off the top of the wine. But you see the cheesecloth, please leave them apart a day. They are not for filtering wine if you're talking quality, right? So you don't want any haziness, because the haziness could also signify things like spoilage, right? Right? You want clear wine, not dull wines, right? Because you want also nice taste. So you have to think about what you're putting into your wine. You ever drink wine and taste like medicine? I don't want medication, I want wine, right? Also depends on what you're developing. You have to think about your water activity. Water activity is very important, because if you're doing dehydrated products and it's not dehydrated properly, you're going to have spoilage. So when you're talking water activity, this is the amount of water that is remaining in the product after you dehydrate it. So one of the things that you're supposed to have when you're doing things like dehydration is a caliper, right? So when you're going to say to somebody, oh, okay, I'm dehydrating mangoes, and somebody say, at what thickness, right? You can be able to say to them at the beginning, it was this thickness, and then at the end, it was this thickness. And these are where you can use as guide for also consistency, rather than not having a proper consistency or a guide to guide you. So one time you will have high amount of water, the next time you have low amount of water. So this is a caliper. So before you peel, when you finish peeling and slicing, and you'll see it in a couple of pictures to me, you would measure the thickness, and this has a dial and you can actually record it. So it will be at a certain thickness before drying, and then after drying, it would be at a different thickness. This is now where you can document your information. So if you are sick and somebody has to take over the business, they can go back and say, okay, when mommy dry it, in order to get optimum quality, it has to be this thickness, right? So it doesn't have water. The water activity is basically reduced, so there's not going to be any sort of microbial growth or any enzymatic activity, so it will not have spoilage, right? So water availability also determines the shelf life of the food, because if it have too much water, obviously it would spoil, right? And the next thing you have to think about, safety. Safety is very important. You can't be doing production in your kitchen and you have a tin of paint there right next door there, or you have Clorox open right there, or some other chemical open right there. When you're doing production, the place are supposed to be clear. You can't have cat running through, you can't have dog running through, and you cannot have your little baby on your side, right? So all these things would actually reduce, if you put them into control, they would actually reduce things like contamination and toxins and those sort of things, right? So this is an example of my wines. So clarity is very important. In the first picture, you have cocoa wine. The second one is a banana wine, Valerie Gold. Valerie is a variety of banana. This was developed for the college a couple of years ago. And in the third one is a lemongrass wine. So clarity is very, very, very important. I normally use for filtering my wine. I have a wine filter that filters at 3 different stages. So the first one is a coarse filter. So I'll do this on one day, then leave my wine to settle. And then the second filter, it's polish, right? So that's filter pad number 2. And the third one is it will remove anything that the naked eyes cannot see, right? So this is an electronic filter, and I would use this to filter my wine. So when I'm doing my rum, so if I'm doing cocoa rum today, it's all cocoa rum, because you cannot use the filter pads on another one, because that would be cross contamination. So if I'm doing cocoa, it's all cocoa. The next day, if I'm doing ginger, it will be all ginger, and so on, right? So clarity is very important, because when you're developing a product, you mustn't only think local, but you must think export quality, right? Another thing that you use to measure quality, your Brix meter, your refractometer, right? So as I explained before earlier on, if I am doing, for example, passion fruit, one of the things when I finish pulping my passion fruit for my rum, I would measure the Brix, right? The Brix will determine what I would do next in my other steps. So you must know the sweetness of whatever you're doing, whether you're doing wine or you're doing jams, because you can't have, if you can just say put 10 pounds of sugar based on XYZ Brix, I would add this amount of sugar. So you must have a guide where you would say, if the Brix is this is what I've been doing. If the Brix is that is what I've been doing, right? So you have to take these things into consideration, right? I was hoping by now that I would have able to clear my color meter today, so I could have shown you what a color meter is and why you use a color meter. So basically, a color meter is used as a guide for quality and consistency. So in terms of color, so you remember I just mentioned earlier on why I go to the supermarket and you see, like say for example, XYZ pepper sauce, because Mabel can't nobody pepper sauce because nobody cussing me if you're online here, right? So it's the XYZ pepper sauce, right? And it's the same pepper sauce, but They brought a batch before and a batch after, and one lighter, one darker, right? That's what you do not want. You want consistency, because when you go on the shelf and you see Hunt's ketchup and you see other people ketchup, it's of one color. You don't see one pale and then one dark. So this is what the color meter do. You keep a bottle over a period of time, or a couple of bottles from your batches, and you can use it to measure the change in color. And it comes up as LAB, I think it's LAB, right? And it would determine over a period of time. So you do it every week and see if there's a color change. Color change could be from the type of bottles you use, the place where it's stored, and those sort of things. Like, for example, sorrel, when it's exposed in a clear bottle, it normally lose color. And I'll show you 2 examples just now. And I was able to change that in terms of mixing my sorrel, in terms of using the one that everybody talk about as the local one, and that one has a bit more tartness, more acidity, and mixing it with the dark one, because if I use a dark one alone, it's just going to fade out after a while in the clear bottle and change color. And sometimes you see people with the sorrel wine and it's brown. It's not that they made an error, it's just because it's in a clear bottle and it's exposed to light and it has a color change, right? But this is where you use a color meter to guide you, so you will know if it's exposed to light, if after 13 weeks in the bottle your products start deteriorating, you must take it off the shelf. What can I do to extend it beyond 13 weeks in a safe manner that will not cause harm to anyone who consume? So all these sort of things. So the color meter is basically an indicator of the change in color. So you use it every week, so you can see, okay, if I'm going to have a color change, not only every week. So if you make this batch and you know this batch, your pepper sauce is supposed to be at a certain number, you know, when you make the batch and you run the color meter over that batch, it doesn't hit that number, you know, whatever error, what you left out, you have to add it back in to get it back to that color, because you're dealing with consistency. You don't want orange pepper sauce this week, brown one next week, and a pale looking white one the other week. You have to think consistency, right? So here you talk about the color meter. The color meter is an essential process in the food industry, right? It helps to meet customer expectation in terms of you won't have inconsistency, you won't have discoloration. So you would actually, customer would think that your stuff is safe to eat. You don't want, when I go to the supermarket and I see 2 different color pepper sauce from the same person, I run on a line through that I'm not support local. Yes, I know I want to support local, but you are not giving me any encouragement to support local, right? So I go stick with Vincent fresh pepper sauce because consistency is there, right? To ensure consistency and color is measurable and reliable. To identify contamination, because if there's a contamination, obviously it will have a different off color, so you will be able to pick it up before you put it on the shelf, right? So avoid subjectivity in terms of measurement. Sometimes you can miss putting something in your stuff, so and then you might see it under your naked eyes and assuming it's the same color. Sometimes based on the lighting in the kitchen or the lighting in the area where you're doing the processing, you can misjudge the color. But with a color meter, you are on point, right? So you're going to create a recognizable brand, because everybody know your pepper sauce is always the same color. Your green season is always green, not brown, not gray, not yellow. It's always green, right? So this is a way to basically guide you in terms of consistency, right? So then you have the consistent meter, very important. And I can't remember how much one of these for, but if you know I am not really sending everybody to buy a color meter. I'm going to be honest. I only purchase it because I like consistency, and because I'm doing my project from here as well, there are certain things I needed to purchase. So I wouldn't send you to purchase this one, but there are smaller ones that you can purchase that might run you about 90 something US dollars. This one, similar to what I buy, run me roughly 300 US dollars, but I want something that is of quality because it's not going to be a one-off use for me, right? So the consistent meter, right? This basically measures things like viscosity, right? And this is important. If you're doing a pepper sauce, obviously you will be able to measure the viscosity in terms of if it's too watery, if it's too runny, if it's too thick, this is what you would use, right? So you will put some in this area here raise the bar, time it, and based on your time, you're going to record it, and you're going to ensure that every time you do pepper sauce, every time you do whatever sauce that you're doing, it's going to maintain this consistency. So this is what you would use, right? So you can't eyeball it and say, oh, yeah, this is the same thing over and over. You can't taste it and say the same thing, because you can be wrong in your judgment. But with equipment that measure these sort of things, you cannot go wrong, right? I talked about the caliper before in terms of measuring thickness and size and those sort of things. It's called a vernier caliper. Here in my picture here, this is when I was doing my Wildcraft CMOS mango powder mix. So I dehydrated my mangoes for myself at home for my class online. So I measured it before my dehydration, which was 0.059 inch. And after dehydration, I would see that it has lost moisture and the water activity would have lower. So it would go down to 0.04 inches. So these things I can use as a guide to guide me, to ensure that every batch that I dried, if it's around this amount, I know it would be the same sort of consistency in terms of creating a powder. So one time my powder would not be cakey, and next time it will be nice and flowing, right? pH meter, very, very important. Very, very important in production of anything, production of wine, production of pepper sauce, production of jams. pH meter is very, very important, right? Why a pH meter is important in food production, not only in food production, but I also have a pH meter that I use in crop production, because I would like to know the pH of my soil, as I mentioned earlier on, because based on the pH of your soil, it can tie in nutrients to your soil and not make it accessible to the plant. Now, in food production or product development, a pH meter is basically used to maintain the pH level at a certain point, right? Because when your pH is at the correct point, it can prevent any sort of microbial growth. For me to go more in depth to talk about different microorganisms that can grow in different pH, in terms of those that love salt-loving environment, and those mesophile, halophiles, and those other things that love different environment, would require a different class. So I'm going to keep it simple today, right? So pH affects your look, your taste of your product, your aroma, and basically the quality, right? For example, if you're doing something like yogurt and the pH is off, it's going to look gray, discolored, and what's not. And you would think that, okay, that was an indication of something is wrong, right? It's not nice and tart. It's just sugar. It's just tasting wrong. And you don't want a yogurt that is just sweet, and you're not tasting the passion fruit, or you're not tasting whatever fruit that you made the yogurt from. You need to have the tartiness, right? So on the other hand, when you're doing things like pepper sauce, your pH is supposed to be below 4.6, at least 4.6 and below, to prevent any sort of harmful bacteria, but not too low on the acidic side, because at the same time, it will affect your mouth feel. Because if you're eating a pepper sauce that is too sour, then it's going to, you're not going to enjoy it and those sort of things. But if it's above 4.6, it's headed alkaline side. So you're talking about a pepper sauce that is going to spoil very easy. It's going to easy get rancid. It's going to taste funny. So it's going to have easy to have microbial growth and those sort of things. So knowing your pH is very, very important in extending the shelf life of your product, right? So here I have, for example, therefore the pH of hot sauce must be less than 4.6. And you can use things such as vinegar, acids such as vinegar, to ensure that you get them down to this level. You can even use things like citric acid or ascorbic acid, because when you use ascorbic acid, it helps to maintain the nice color of your whatever. It helps in retaining the color of your pepper sauce or whatever sauce that you are making, right? So if one is at 4.6, right, it would reduce things like botulism forming, so you would not have food poisoning. So these are things that are very important. So once you're into food production, you must have a pH scale, a pH meter. The next one is if you are doing things like wines or if you are into beer production and those sort of things. One of the things that you will need to have is a hydrometer, right? A hydrometer, right? And with this now, you can measure both the bricks and you can measure the starting gravity. So one of the things that you want to do is measure the starting gravity and the final gravity. And I also have one of these that I use for rum. So I'm just making sure it doesn't matter because I'm not testing anything now. So there's one for rum and there's one for wine, right? So you must know the starting gravity and the final gravity. This will help you to calculate your alcohol percentage rather than you just writing on it, 5%, 4%, 9%. It look like 9% and it tastes strong. It tastes strong. So it's like 9%. No, we're not doing guesstimation. Do your test. So once you have your starting gravity and your final gravity, you'll be able to calculate your alcohol percentage, right? So in the next picture is where I have that's some picture of me testing for alcohol. In the last one, I was hoping to have that as well because I kind of like gadgets. I'm going to be honest, right? So in the last one, this one over here is it's new to me. I think it was out a while. This is also a hydrometer, but it's easier. You just drop it in it and you create the app on your phone and it will just give you the reading. So you will have the specific gravity right there and the temperature and everything so you could do your recording. Rather than have to wait, push this into the liquid, spin it to get out the bubbles and show you how the correct temperature. And then you have to be going close by and then show, okay, let's wait till it settle out to see what the starting gravity is and those sort of things. Now it's easier. I drop it into the alcohol and I basically have an app on my phone and it will basically record what is the specific gravity, the temperature, and then I can do my my calculations, right? So what is the need for value addition, right? To improve the profitability of a local commodity, right? So whereas you would have sweet potato that might be $5 a pound, now a pound of sweet potato flour is going to be like $16, $17 because the value of that has actually raised, right? To empower farmers, there's a feedback, not quite sure from who, right? To empower farmers and other section of the society, especially women, to gain employment opportunities and basically revitalize the rural communities. But who am I kidding? One salary cannot make it in these times. So to create a little side hustle, right? So that is something that you can consider. When I started my little rum business, it wasn't for a side hustle, it was out of boredom. And I just wanted something to come home in afternoons and do. And I didn't want to do pepper sauce. So I tried to do something that is out of the box that nobody else is basically doing, right? To provide a better quality, safe, and branded food to consumers, to emphasize on primary and secondary processing, to reduce post-harvest loss, for the reduction of importation and meet export demands, because when you develop a product, you mustn't only think locally, you must think about exporting your stuff, right? A way of increasing foreign exchange, to encourage growth in industries, to reduce economic risk in marketing, to increase opportunities for small farmers and companies, to development of a market, to diversify the economic base of the rural communities, especially rural communities. I think more rural communities can form groups, but the problem is here, when you form groups to do agro-processing, one does look at the other. Her house done big. If I come together to do this, her house can get bigger. She driving car, I depend food. I've worked with groups where I keep hearing these things, and I really don't want to work with groups like that anymore. I rather work with an individual and help them to develop themselves, because when you try to get a group together, it does not function because people are thinking more negative than they are thinking positive, right? And also to increase financial stability. Why is my slide sticking? Right. So when you're getting into product development, you have to think of the way people buy food, the Jane Kinesis hierarchy of how people buy food, right? What is the driving force of the value addition? We know the way people buy food. If it's a household with little to no income, they are going to buy food that is nutritious, safe, and affordable. So you have to consider them when you're developing a product, right? increasing salary, they're going to go now for taste good and variety. So what they would have settled for before, because it's a bit more cheaper and what's not, they no longer want that, right? They want something that tastes good. And then, you know, everybody in the household is working, so people are thinking convenience. So you want to come home to where you can pop something in the oven and it's finished. Like, for example, jet tongue in Jamaica, right? They have what's that? Sweet potato pudding in a bag, right? So it's grated sweet potato with all the spices and everything. So you basically defrost it, put it in a container, and you put it in the oven and you bake it. That's perfect for me because I'm not grating no sweet potato, right? And I do not like how it tastes when you run it through the blender, because oftentimes if you don't have a proper blender, you have to add a bit more water just to get it to blend properly. And no, so if you grate it, you package it, and I purchase it and I make it, right? For example, you could have a soup pack where you go, you buy the packet with the different vegetables cut in it, you put your pot, you put either you stew down your callaloo, or if you already have callaloo already stewed down, and you add in your vegetables and your ground provision and so on. So you have to think when you're developing a product, think convenience, because that is what going to sell these days. Nobody wants to go home to peel ground provision. Nobody wants to go home to start doing something from scratch. So convenience is what sells. Also, what sells is promoting health, because everybody is thinking green food, superfood, this food. So they want stuff made from dragon fruit, from kale, from anything around the line of fruit. So you have to think about creating products like that without denaturing the nutrients in these fruits. So think along that line, and then you're going to be food that are people who live in well, and nighttime they would have a glass of wine with the meal and those sort of things. So when you're creating your product, you must take into consideration how people buy food. This is a driving force behind value addition, right? So some parameters for value addition. Any attempt for value addition should focus on the following parameters for maximum benefit. So it must be unique. I mean, unique, and I mean very much unique. Don't tell me you add turmeric in your pepper sauce and it's different. It's still pepper sauce. Everybody doing pepper sauce, right? So maybe you can think about a tamarind pepper sauce, but Vincent Fresh is doing that, or a passion fruit pepper sauce, a mango pepper sauce, golden apple, dragon fruit. You have to think outside the box. And I'm seeing everybody doing pepper sauce and nobody salad dressing. We have so much fruit, say we can make so much vinaigrette, we can make salad dressing. There's so many things that you can make with fruit. So whatever you decide to do, it must be unique. The product should be one of its own kind. It shouldn't have a high amount of competitors out there, right? I mean, everybody, you done master, what I can't say master it. Everybody and the auntie making pepper sauce and green seasoning. Give me a break. That's the widest local commodity on the shelf. It takes up sometimes a whole aisle. Nobody thinking about doing different in terms of your pepper sauce. Add other things. The same green seasoning. Why not dehydrate it and make something that you can actually put on your food? Because you hardly find Mrs. Dashe anymore. So make something like that you can use for seasoning, a dry rub or something along that line. Give me a break with the green season, because some people don't get it right. It make your food taste so nasty at time because it has so much off flavor. And those people who like to put mint in the green seasoning, there's a place in hell for you all. That's nasty, right? Right, so you must come up with a novelty product, right? Something new and unusual. It must at least have export potential. If you think about export potential, you're going to develop a product of quality, right? It must have high value. The product should have high value, right? For low volume, for ease of trading, right? It must be available, consistently available, right? It mustn't have a situation where this week it have and next week you don't have because you don't have bottle, you don't have this, you don't have that, right? So these are the things that you must take into consideration, right? Any market, any product that is developed must have market, because the market is the key for successful. So you mustn't, what I shouldn't say, you mustn't develop a product because of your liking. But if you alone like it, you're not going to have a market. You alone going to consume this. So this goes back to you doing your market research to ensure that you have a market for whatever product you decide to develop. And the person who's dealing with agro marketing and what's that will go more in depth into that. And that's not my area. right? Production systems, very important. So you decided you want to start doing something. You do not have the funding to transform your kitchen into a processing unit. So you have to use what you have, right? So in production system, these system can be physically managed and it will require increase in labor input, right? So you have to ensure that you're going to have no errors, right? As I said, if you are cooking, if you are processing today, you cannot cook. And you must clean the kitchen a couple of hours before you decide to go into process. So you can't say you're going to get up in the morning, cook, and that scent is in the kitchen. And no, you must clean your kitchen and then you will start your processing, and processing alone must be done. And if your processing is going to take the whole week, you know, for that whole week, you either buy food somewhere or something, because you cannot have that sort of thing going on in terms of food cooking and you process it in your kitchen, right? So this is just a simple layout. This is my kitchen. When I redo my kitchen, I decide I'm not putting any overhead cupboards, because, you know, overhead cupboards would actually result in dust falling in whatever you're creating. So I have no overhead cupboards. I have no cloth curtains. So I have verticals blind, where it was very easy to clean. On my counter, I try to keep it as simple as possible, just in the event that an agro-processor is going to tell me I can't afford that because those granite counter are too expensive. I decided to use porcelain counter. There's slight amount of space in between where if anything get between it's easily to clean. It's not too wide to cause a lot of stuff to get in, and it's not too narrow where it will be hard to clean. So it's easy to sanitize and so on, right? My ceiling, all my lights are covered. It's white. I have a table in the middle where I do all my cuttings and so on. On my day of processing, I clean and I have nothing else on my counter than what I'm doing. So I'm gonna use my arrow to point. So you must have a flow system. So in the corner over here, you're not seeing it, but there's a door. I bring in everything to the door and I go up to the zinc and I wash whatever fruits or whatever I'm using with. And then I come over here and I cut and I package and whatever, and I put them in my deep freeze that is located down this side. On the day of processing, if I'm doing all my stuff, it's done on the center stainless steel table. And right under here, you can see my filter right there. So everything is done here. So when I'm filtering, I take the filter out, put it up here, plug it up, and do what I have to do. So all my work is done on that stainless steel table. I clean it, and I go about my business, right? So it's in a, oh my God, where this gone back? So it's in a flow section where everything come in here. I work here. When I finish, if I finish and I bottle in everything, I put everything up here. And then I have another place on the outside where I basically store everything that is finished. So one of the things in your production system, you must have control, right? Prevent or eliminate any sort of risk at all costs, right? You must be able to reduce any sort of microbial, physical, chemical, any sort of thing from entering the production area. So whereas before my kitchen had a fancy wood blocks up here, all that is closed off. It has 3 doors, because the door that comes into the kitchen, the living room, close off. The doors that goes up to the other part of the house, close off. And obviously the kitchen door as well, close off. One of the things that I have not installed as yet is an extractor fan. I have it, it's just not in. That is to basically pull any sort of fumes and heat out of the kitchen whilst I'm working, right? So these are the things. You must also have a standard operating procedure in terms of, you have a list and then you could check off what you did to ensure that you covered everything so that you would be, you know, so if you know certain things are supposed to get a certain temperature, and I don't want to go too in depth in this because Theo is going to talk about all these things. If you know certain things are supposed to be at a certain temperature, so you must have different checkpoints where you have to check your temperature to ensure things are done properly, right? So what to expect in a production system? The entry point can be used as a double purpose, mean entry and exit, right? But you have to be careful how you're going about that. When you're processing it, you have no need to go outside unless it's an emergency, but you have to sanitize when you get back into the processing area, right? So sanitation, your hand, your food, your produce, the machine, all these sort of things, right? It's best to have a white garbage bin so you can ensure that it's easily clean. You would see when it's dirty and those sort of things, right? You must have a large area for your production, so you can't have it there and a small area and the onion they jam up there, and then you have some other all time ornaments. Clean out your kitchen, get rid of all them unnecessary things that you normally have in your kitchen, right? You must have access to a toilet facility in terms of especially if you have somebody working with you, you must have access to the toilet as close as possible so that they can utilize the toilet, sanitize themselves and come back, right? All these things are ideal for a production system. And you must have potable water, so you're not going to be using water out of a bucket that have been stored up there since before suffer erupt and you're trying to use it up now because you have processing. You must have clean running water, right? This is just an example of a production system. So you in food preparation, you pass the meal over here, maybe the service, and you out, right? Storage and cleaning. So you must have a flow, right? You mustn't have any sort of cross contamination. There are other simpler ones. I just gonna find a simpler one at the time, but mine one is as simple as possible because where you get in, you come in at this side, you do stuff over here, store stuff there, you walk here, and over here can be used as storage. And there's also another area down this side where I can put stuff, plug in stuff, or whatever the case may be. And normally when I'm processing, my counters are always empty, right? Matter of fact, they're always empty. Right? So how to make my kitchen a factory? One, you must have a holding period, meaning, and I'm not going to go too in depth in this because I say Theo is going to cover things like this. A holding period, meaning when you're processing, nothing or no one should be in the kitchen 3 hours before you start. So when you do your sanitation, you sanitize your area, nobody should be in that kitchen area. Nobody going in to fry an egg or toast a bread or whatever. Nobody should enter after you sanitize that area within 3 hours. You're the only person supposed to enter after 3 hours to start your processing. So you get up early in the morning, you clean, or you can do it the night before, clean, close off your kitchen and go to bed, right? Designate tools for and utensils for this. Now you're doing pepper sauce, you're not supposed to be using the same thing that you use when you're cooking. So you have your own chopping board, your own stuff for this, and your chopping board is supposed to be color coding because you're not supposed to be using vegetables and meat for the same things, right? So you're going to allocate special washing area for raw products and those other things. I was smiling the other day when my pastor then came to me, she told me she bought a zinc and she's putting in a zinc in the kitchen. So I say, saying I have a zinc already. She said, but you always say have a special area for that. And I just smiled because I like the idea that she went and get a separate zinc just for dealing with these sort of things, especially she are going to be dealing with the raw commodities, right? The toilet should not be in the same room, but at least located close by, right? When using chilling equipment, ensure that meat and dairy are not product are not basically present at the same time. You should not have them together. And even when you're storing in the fridge, you store meat separate from dairy, vegetables separate from dairy. So you can't put everything in the same place. And you should have a different storage facility for your products for that. You should not have the same thing storing in the fridge with where you're pushing in your ham next to it and you're pushing in other things next to it, and then when you're ready to make a pepper sauce, it smells like ham, it smells like this, it smells like all that sort of nonsense that is in the fridge. So you must have a special fridge just for those sort of things, right? Use an extractor fan to help to control the heat, or a fan to basically help to pull the heat out of the kitchen, right? All right, so we're gonna get into additives, food additives food additives. I'm thinking feed because I'm also thinking animals, so I have to correct that. So food additives, right? In food production, basically additives help to increase the value of product. This includes the taste, your color, the nutrition, the texture, the shelf life, the aroma, and the quantity. So food additives. But the problem we have is that some people abuse food additives, right? They don't use it correctly. And we want to correct that as time go by. So you're not throwing a whole tablespoon into, you must have, as I said, when we go further down, we'll talk about the standardized product recipe, right? So simplified, food additives is any substance. It could be natural or synthetic, right? Used to improve or change the characteristics of a food product. So it could be like coloring, food enhancers, thickeners such as xanthan gum, guar gum, and those sort of things, sweeteners, emulsifiers such as lecithin, and those sort of things. So food additives is very important if you want to extend the shelf life of your product, because it's going to change your texture, your taste, and so on. But at the same time, whether natural or synthetic, you should not abuse it, right? So this is just repeating. It prevents things like food spoilage. It enhances food in terms of the appearance, flavor, texture, and their nutritive value, right? So we have preservatives and we have enhancers. So preservatives are basically chemicals that are used to slow down things like growth of microorganisms in food. So it will not cause the growth of things like botulism and all these other sorts of microorganisms that can actually affect your food, right? They would actually prevent spoilage, and they are basically called antimicrobials. Then you have enhancer that basically slow down or prevent the change in color. So prevent things like rancidity. So you would put things like vitamin E in oil, and there's a type of silicone that you put in oil to prevent it from actually forming up. So we would see when we have our coconut oil, it will foam when it's heating, especially when you're frying something. But the commercial oil that we use will not have that frothing occurring because of things that was put in it to prevent it from frothing, right? So all these things are enhancers, right? So they would maintain freshness, delay rancidity. All these things are basically called antioxidants. So it could be things like vitamin C, it could be things like vitamin E, right? So I won't go too in depth, as I said. I'm not sure if Theo would cover something along this line, but it takes a lot of knowing about microbiology and food chemistry to ensure you know how some of these things work, right? But in this, you will know the basics that you can actually do. So some examples of preservatives, we have benzoic acid, we have calcium sorbate, we have potassium nitrate, we have sodium benzoate, the one that a lot of people using now, and then they're abusing it, not knowing some of these things are carcinogenic, meaning that they are cancer causing, right? We have citric acid, we have table salt, and we have cooking vinegar. These are some simple preservatives, right? So the benzoic acid, and sodium benzoate, these are food preservatives, and they are suitable for things like food, fruit juice, and soft drinks. But you have to do your research. And I realized I forgot to put in a table that I normally share with people in terms of how much percentage of this that you're supposed to use. And sodium benzoate is 0.1 or around 1%, right? So you use this in fruit juice, soft drinks, and so on. But you must have a standardized recipe, because how are you going to measure that percentage to put into your product if you are doing a 5-gallon batch and you just put in what, a teaspoon? No, right? So you must, and I'll show you how to do a standardized recipe. So you use preservatives in things like food, beverage, toothpaste, mouthwash, and so on, right? So you have calcium sorbate, also known as calcium salt. It's a fine white crystalline powder used as a preservative to prevent the growth of microbes. It has a bit of vitamin C. It's vitamin C, but it's kind of like sour, right? Then you have potassium nitrates and all those nitrites that actually are used in curing of meat. So you have your pink salt, you have your different types of salt, and these are basically used to give the meat its color as well. So when you're doing your things like your bacon and you're doing your dry ham and those sort of things, these are what you normally use, right? So nitrates are primarily used for rapid curing of meat, employing sodium nitrate and potassium nitrate. It also helps to maintain the red color of cured meat, and it gives it a nice appearance, right? Talk about sodium benzoate before, right? So yes, 0.1%. So sodium benzoate is generally recognized as safe and can be used as an antimicrobial agent and flavoring agent in food with a maximum of 0.1%. So now tell me, you do a bucket of pepper sauce and you are going to add sodium benzoate. Oh, you're adding the 1%, 0.1%. I just want to know how Helens do it because I know a lot of Vincent use sodium benzoate, but I do not know if they don't have a standardized recipe how they're adding their 0.1%, right? So sodium benzoate inhibits growth and of potential harmful bacteria and mold and other microbes in food, right? So it's good to use, it's safe to use, but if you use it wrong, it do not become safe. You can become cancer forming, right? So you must use it correctly. So citric acid, sour salt, which I'll show you below further down how you calculate your stuff. So don't worry. So citric acid, which is a sour salt, citric acid is one of the most commonly used food preservatives for flavoring and flavoring additives. It can be found naturally in citrus fruits, but it also is manufactured, right? So citric acid is a concentrated powder and it is basically of a sour flavor. And you can actually use it as a pH buffer. So you can use it to lower your pH, especially when you're doing things like your pepper sauce and what's not. And if you are using, like if you are creating things like ganache or fillings for your whatever confectionery that you want to create, right? So in citric acid, I basically use citric acid in when I'm creating things like bonbons, mango pepper sauce, passion fruit pepper sauce, and passion fruit salad dressing, right? So anti-caking agent, and these would be for individual who wants to prevent your thing from clumping because they might be sticking together, and you can actually prevent this if you dry them properly. But anti-caking agent will actually prevent things from clumping, and these are what you use. You basically use sodium bicarbonate, right? So when you're purchasing these things, ensure that you buy food grade and you use it according to the instruction so that it would be safe. Right? Antioxidants, as I mentioned before, these prevent in terms of things like changing color and those sort of things. And what you normally use are things like ascorbic acid. So, you know, when you add ascorbic acid to your pepper sauce, as I should have also mentioned that I add ascorbic acid here, so you can maintain a nice yellow color, right? So ascorbic acid, you could add it to your pepper sauce and certain thing because it also aid with color retention. And vitamin E is added to things like oil and those sort of things, so it would prevent it from becoming rancid. So food coloring, what you can use for food coloring, you can use local natural things. So you could use ruku or annatto, or you can use beet, which you get benthanine from, right? You can also use dragon fruit, the red one. You can use turmeric, you can use grape skin and caramel, because these are basically natural coloring, right? And as I mentioned before, for color retention, you can use ascorbic acid. So this is vitamin C powder. So it helps to maintain your bright colors like your orange and your red and those sort of things in your pasta sauce and your tomato sauce and those sort of things. You can add your vitamin C powder, right? And we all know table salt is another form of preservatives. You can use them when you're canning your fish. I remember growing up when we slaughter pigs for Easter and Christmas, the excess would be canned, and on evening time, somebody from the area would always come and bother me. We want 2 pounds of canned pork, and I had to put my hands in that. I don't eat those sort of meat. So it used to be a problem for me because I don't eat pork, mutton, beef, those sort of things. So me having to leave from what I'm doing to go and cut that up to give to them was a major problem. But yes, it's how my grandparents used to ensure that everything is basically being utilized. So after slaughtering and selling and what is remained, they would can it, and the occasional time when my grandfather would make things like ham and those sort of things at Christmas time from one of the shoulder of the pig. All right. So this in the picture here is canned fish. I love canned fish, especially red fish, hindfish. Right. So this is done by a past student. Right? So, you know, also sugar is a form of preservative. You can make your candied fruits, you can make candied ginger, you can, because the sugar basically helps to basically lower the water content in these fruits, right? In these products. So it helps to slow down growth and bacteria and mold and those sort of things. For example, when you're making your jam and your preserves and those sort of things. So sugar also helps to preserve the color and the texture of the food, right? So in this picture, you see you have candied ginger and you have your sugar cake, right? Another preservative that everybody know, white cooking vinegar, right? And this is normally used in your production of your green seasoning, your pepper sauce, and other condiments. So this is what you normally use, and water, right? So trying to whisper it because I know a lot of people tell me that they use water and then you see the water basically float up to the top, and so another story. Let me not go down that road. But yes, the vinegar, the cooking vinegar is what you use in the creation of your pepper sauce, right? So these are just some examples. I'm not finished, right? So when you're making your pepper sauce and it has a bit too much water, which you're not supposed to put, but it has a bit too much liquid, right? In terms of your vinegar. What you can basically add to it is some xanthan gum, right? So some xanthan gum will help to reduce it would stabilize it. It's like a thickener, right? And you know, it also goes back to when you're making your pepper sauce, what do you use as as your bulk? Whether you're going to use pepper, whether you're going to use carrots or pumpkin as your bulk, that would determine in terms of how your consistency would be. So normally for my bulk, I normally use carrots, right? For my filler, I would use carrots. So xanthan gum is a substance used when making some foods and medication. It has different effect on these products. It can be used as a thickener. It can use to keep textures from changing and holding ingredients in place. So you would not have that separation in your pepper sauce, right? It would keep it consistent and together and not that separation where the liquid floating on top and all the solids at the bottom. You don't want that in your pepper sauce, all right? So xanthan gum is produced by fermenting carbohydrates, a substance that contains sugar, right? So xanthan gum, as I said, is a food thickener made from a bacteria that are found in many plants. So you can use the xanthan gum, your guaga gum in your ice cream production, right? It is a stabilizer. It helps to prevent those formation of your ice crystals, right? So it prevents it from melting fast. It increases the shelf life of your ice cream and so on, right? It increases the texture and the consistency. So you have a nice creamy ice cream and not a icy ice cream. So this is an example of xanthan gum. And this is an example of pepper sauce where before it has a bit too much liquid and you add your xanthan gum and it's up a nice consistency. So these are some things that you can use when you're creating your pepper sauce. And I think a break is up now. So we take a 5 minutes break and I'm open to questions why I quench my thirst because trust me, I'm tired. So Latoya, please time me, please. 5 minutes.
Already started.
I'm open for questions now. Let me see what's in the question. No questions? I put everybody to sleep. What is this?
No, I'm not sleeping. Good night, everybody.
Not sleeping. Interesting.
I'm not sure if I heard you mention that there is nobody to teach about agro-processing.
No, not the agro-processing part, but in terms of using the preservatives properly.
Yes, because I have a lot of allergic reactions, right? So I have to always be careful as to who I eat from, where I eat, and what I eat. So I like to experiment with food thing at home. So when you ask the question about the different food you put up on the screen and the pumpkin, I was telling my mommy and my daughter last week that I would love to buy myself a dehydrator because I want to make my own flour. Yeah. And the pumpkin was one of them. I told her I would love to make pumpkin flour. So where the preservative is concerned, I am really interested in learning the different types of preservatives and how to utilize them, be it in food or products, cosmetic products, because me like to make my own oil, and I want to learn to make creams and lotions and moisturizers. So yes. So if there's any link to an outside source that I can do my studies with in terms of that, that would be appreciated.
So Kariri in Trinidad, where you send your stuff to do testing, they normally offer training online, right? So I did, besides along with my course at UE, I did a level 1, and I'm about to do the level 2 training with them. So you have to do the level 1 first. What in your case, if you don't have any microbiology background, you would have to do the food microbiology session with them first, then do the level 1, then the level 2, right? You can follow them on their page, Kariri Trinidad. Normally when these things are advertised, when they are going to offer it, they would advertise it in advance, and you can get those training. It might help you a bit in terms of guiding you in terms of the different types of preservative. No, you wouldn't get to do the hands-on practicals like I would have gotten to do, but it would give you a better understanding rather than just using a teaspoon, a tablespoon, and these sort of things, because I really don't know how these agro-processors in St. Vincent calculate the 0.1% with a teaspoon in a whole bucket. Yeah. So sometimes they're putting too much, or they're putting not enough, or something along that line. So we need that training. I mean, the funny thing about it, in Trinidad, you can get these training anywhere about, but we are not focused around that, and people are just putting anything on the shelf without the proper training. Yeah. Anybody else?
Good night. If that is your wine, I must say presentation is 10 out of 10.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's a wine that was developed for the college a couple of years ago. So yes, that's the quality that you should be putting out there. Not a wine with a lot of sediments, right? And then the picture is white chocolate done by me as well. Well, the chocolates were done by me, and the breadfruit was not done by me, but I put this there because breadfruit is very much underutilized, and in Hawaii, where the breadfruit gene bank is found, they utilize breadfruit to do a lot of things, and I love the way that nothing is lost in this breadfruit. This is basically sliced like this using a meat slicer, fried and eat. Yeah. And you can use it like this to make tacos as well. Utilize everything.
Sorry, excuse me, 5 minutes up.
All right, so let me continue, but I see somebody message in the chat. Oh, yeah, somebody was asking if that's taco you can use. Yes, you can use that to do taco as well. Let me cook this again. All right, so continuing. Condiments that we do in the Caribbean are basically things like green seasoning, garlic sauce, sweet sauces, hot sauce, or pepper sauce, right? And in the picture, that is just some mango pepper sauce that was done by me. So I basically utilize everything except the seeds. So I use the skin and everything. Not for the market, I just did it to, as I said, I love to experiment. So I'll put them in little bottles and I'll just give it to individuals, right? So advantage of making condiments, you will reduce waste, enhance flavor profile, right? Especially when whatever you're cooking, satisfy the export market requirements, because we have so much things that we can use here to make seasonings and whatever and so on, right? It's practical. It's a part of our culture. You could create a brand, and you can basically create a whole experience. And I will talk a little bit about the experience, because when I go down talking a bit more about gastronomic tourism because tourists don't want to go on the beach. They want to come for an experience. So be it food or whatever the case may be. I mean, well, we go further down, right? And it can also generate revenue, right? Some challenges in making condiments is one of the things is maintenance is a problem in terms of consistency. The color, the aroma, the thickness, the smoothness, the density, the microbial level, and the water activities. These are very much important in terms of maintaining a proper consistency in your condiments. Right? Ways to improve density are your thickeners like your xanthan gum, bulk products such as your carrots or pumpkin, whatever you're using, your different additives, and reduce water usage. So you try to use limited amount of water. Water should not be something that you should be consider adding, or you should not always be thinking about stretching your pepper sauce and your green seasoning. That is just unethical, right? So we're going to talk about product standardization, right? So in terms of standardization, a standardized recipe or formulation is a set of written instruction used to consistently prepare a known quality and quantity of food. A standardized recipe will produce a product that is close to identical in taste and yield every time it's made, no matter who do it, once you follow the direction. Right? So some of the benefit of a standardized formulation is consistent quality and quantity, the standard unit size, and your cost. Your cost, you will always be able to know how much it costs you to produce a batch of whatever you're doing, right? Work simplification for staff, aids in forecasting and purchasing, fewer errors in production, aids in training new employees and retaining employees, and it basically reduces waste, all right? And it's more easy to meet the customer expectation, right? So how you go about doing a standardized product recipe, right? Standardized formulation, right? So you document all the ingredients, including water and your spices, because you tend to leave out the spices because you want to use a small amount, but you document all the ingredients right down to your spices and you list them in descending proportion, right? Another thing that you're going to do, you're going to include the brand name. So if you are using, let's say, I think it's Red Star sugar. If you have people sending sugar from abroad, what brand of sugar you're using, you're going to note it. If you're using a regular, I could understand that there would be no brand, but you have to try to keep in consistency because some of these sugar have a higher Brix than some. So if you're using Red Star East, wine yeast, you're going to indicate Red Star wine yeast and the quantity. You must include the brand names of whatever you use because you can get a different outcome. Even your things such as your mixer, your blender, you must include this, right? Because some of these things can blend things at a different consistency, right? You must weigh, not measuring cup, not measuring spoon. We are not in 1832, we are in 2023. So we're going to weigh all our ingredients. Everybody who is in processing must have at least 2 scales, right? You're gonna have your kitchen scale and then you're gonna have a small gram scale that you're going to use for small ingredients like your spices, your additives, and those sort of things, right? So you must weigh all your ingredients and include all the quantities. Then you're going to take everything that you weigh and you're going to turn it into 1 unit. So if you're going to use grams, you're going to use pounds, you're going to use ounce, that is what you're going to do. Turn everything into 1 unit, right? Right? So that is what you're going to do. Then you're going to limit the target, the amount of, this is where you're going to be able to calculate the amount of additives that you use, right? You must know how much additives, to control the amount of additives or preservative that is basically used, right? So why weigh? Weighing is the most accurate measurement of measuring ingredients versus by count or by volume, right? Weigh are more accurate for density, for moisture, for temperature, all these sort of things. You must weigh, right? Because a cup of brown sugar can vary it depends on the different cups that you use, depends on the different spoon that you use. Also depends on the shape of the brown sugar. Some could be very fine and packed properly. Some could be very large and loose, and you could have difference in variation. So the best thing to do is weigh, right? Then you're going to create a raw material specification. And this is when I was talking about if you're using pineapple or you're using passion fruit, you measure the bricks. So you know if I'm creating a bottle of orange juice or a bottle of whatever juice, the bricks of the fresh squeezed juice must be this in order to create this, right? So you're going to create a raw material specification, right? This is based on the final quality features that you may want in the product. So how sweet do you want the juice, right? So remember at the beginning I was saying, if I'm going to do a dessert wine, I would want bricks of over 26 and above, right? But if I'm going to do a dinner wine, which is a dry wine, I would want a bricks of between 20 and 23, right? So you have to determine what is your end game so that you will create a raw material specification, right? So fruit pulps, even though you're using passion fruit from the same person all the time, they are going to be different variation in sweetness. One time there's a lot of rain, next time there's a lot of dry season. So the water content and the sweetness will change as time go by. You have to look at your kitchen as a lab and not as a kitchen, you know. So you have to do your test. You must have a bricks meter. I mean, this one is kind of like cheap, but it's cheap, it's accurate as well, but I personally ready to upgrade in terms of you have to put it here and show that you have light and you have to look through and what's not. But there are digital one, and I already ordered digital one, and it's on the way where I'll just drop and it will read it for me and everything. So you have to use your kitchen and make sure it functions as a lab. Otherwise, you will not be taking your product development properly, right? So you're going to document the process and the procedure, right? One of the reasons why you document all these things, so you make a flow chart, right? So you could do a flow chart. The first thing, heat to 10 degrees Celsius. You can't say heat to boil. You cannot say that because that would create variation, because somebody heat to boil will be different from another person heat to boil. So it's going to be heat to 100 degrees Celsius, heat to 90 degrees Celsius, not bring to a boil. You have to start thinking at product development as a lab. It's a science. You're creating a product. It's not just throwing everything together, heat to boil, bring to a boil. No. So you have to make a flow chart indicating and you will have checkpoints. So heat to 100 degrees Celsius. So you must have a thermometer, right? So you heat and then cool to whatever. Then if you're doing wine, so you know the first thing, well, when I'm creating wine, I heat everything because I want to kill any sort of microorganisms. So I heat. I don't use the Camden tablet in terms of adding, no, I will heat. So I'll heat to 98, 100 degrees Celsius. Those sort of things. Depends on what I am making, right? Then I will put another thing, I use only stainless steel bowls. So then I'll put all my stuff. So I'll put my sugar in the stainless steel bowl. Then I'll add my pectin enzymes. I'll add my acid blend. I'll add my yeast nutrients because your yeast need to have something to feed on. One of the reasons why I don't use bread yeast in making wine, that would only give me a sweet wine and would take my wine up to like a 4 to 6% alcohol. That is juice, that is not wine, and I'm not spending time in the kitchen to make fermented juice. No, I want alcohol when I'm drinking a glass of wine. So I want my wine to be at least 12% in alcohol content. So I use different types of wine yeast. So based on what I'm creating, I'll use it. So then you add that. So then the next thing you'll have to do is you'll have to rehydrate your yeast now. So if you have to rehydrate your yeast, you have to use water of 30 degrees Celsius. So all of these things will be in your flow chart. And then when you finish, you must be at least 4 pH of 4 and those sort of things. So you know you have a proper must and those sort of things. So these things, as I said, you design a flow chart and you check off as you go, right? So you document the process and procedure and specification. And as I said, you check out something. So if you have to blend, if you have to mix, if you have to check the time. So when you rehydrate an yeast, it's at 30 minutes, 20 minutes, depends on the different yeast that you're using. So you must have a timer as well. Right? So you document the process and the procedure and the specification, right? So you know the point at which you have to measure the pH, the temperature, or the pressure, or you have to check for the specific gravity and those sort of things. So as I said before, be specific. Don't set heat until boiling. Instead, say heat to 90 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Celsius, and so on, right? So you can have a standardized recipe, right? Then, as I said, after you convert everything to one unit, you're going to then convert them to percentage, right? So you're going to convert all your weights to percentage, right? So you use a conversion table. You can go online if you cannot do it, and you punch them in and you convert everything to percentage, right? And then you document that. So you document all of these things, right? So your yield, all the yield should be accounted for. So you must take into consideration things like loss, and loss could be from evaporation, loss could be from transferring from, like if you are doing, if I'm creating fillings for chocolate, loss could be from transferring the filling from the pot into the container to basically squeeze the filling in. So you could, all these things could be loss. So you must calculate and make provision for loss. So your percentage yield would be your actual yield over your theoretical yield multiplied by 100%, and this is where you can account for how much you will be getting from this batch of you create every time, right? Say you develop a qualification specification. Documentation is very important. Be prepared to purchase the necessary equipment if necessary, if required. No guesswork should be done. So if you know you need a thermometer, don't say, yeah, this warm enough. This is like 30 degrees Celsius. Yeah. You don't have a thermometer in your hand, so you buy a thermometer. This is not supposed to be based on observation. You're not going to taste and say, it's sour now, pH good. No, you must buy a pH meter, right? Right? So I will not send anyone to purchase a moisture meter. That is something, if you're creating composite flour for sale and those sort of things, having a moisture meter is very important, because you'll be able to know if the moisture is at the correct temperature, so correct level, so that you wouldn't have growth of microorganisms, right? So microbial and some chemical specification, example, percentage moisture for certain dried fruits and those sort of things, you will need a moisture meter, right? So important, you cannot measure food additives using teaspoon or cup measurement, because measuring spoon and cups are not uniform and they give variation. Example, 1 teaspoon of citric acid used in a plastic baking spoon and one in a stainless steel teaspoon gives different weight. So the plastic give you 4.4 grams and the stainless steel give you 3.8 grams. You can also have situation where not only they are not uniform, but at the same time you can have different shapes in the same preservative. So some could be shaped like a rod and some could be fine like powder. So this is where your gram scale will become in handy, so that you can actually weigh it and you get the correct amount of food additive, so you don't put extra to cause harm, right? So calculating the amount of food additives, most food additives will tell you whether how much percentage is allowed in your batch. So if it's 0.1%, you must add 0.1% of the amount that you have, right? So for example, calculating the additives, right? So you have an example here. So you have water, 13 pounds, 6 ounces. So we convert everything to kilograms. So 6.1 kilogram. You have your sugar, you have your juice, meaning your pulp, you have your carrot puree, you have your xanthan gum, you have your citric acid. You want to know how much sodium benzoate you're going to add, right? So if you add all of this up, it's going to come to 22 pounds or 10 kg. So your 0.1% should be of either your 22 pounds or your 10 kg. Your 0.1% for your sodium benzenate, right? So you can take your time and go through it. I'm also in the chat. So at any time you're having problem, you can also reach out to me. So you have 22 pounds of your juice, right? Your maximum amount of sodium benzenate allowed by law is 0.1%, right? So therefore, it's 0.1 multiplied by the 22 pounds, right? So at the end, you will know you only need 10 grams, 10 grams or 0.35 ounce of sodium benzenate. It's best if you use grams because it's easy to put in 10 grams on your scale, your gram scale. So you know with 22 pounds of juice, you need 10 grams. So it's a simple calculation. And each food additives would tell you how much is allowed. So by law, only 0.1% is allowed for sodium benzenate to make it safe, right? You don't need more. Do not double it like farmers do with their chemicals and what's not. You add in more, you're going to create problems to people, and hence the reason why we have so much uprising cancer, because it can become, when you use certain thing in excessive amount or improperly, it can become carcinogenic, right? So I'm just wrapping up, almost close to the end. So I'm just going to show some examples of things that you can make. So we have the composite flour. Composite flour are made from things like sweet potato, cassava, breadfruit, plantain, whatever root crops you can name, you can think about, you can make composite flour. And here in the pictures, you have, this is Jamaica. So you have your dumpling mix, you have your breadfruit flour, you have your porridge mix, and you have your pudding mix. So these are things that you just, with this one, the pudding mix, this is actually flour, and you just add water, rehydrate it, and you put it in the oven to bake. And I tried it before, and it makes a nice sweet potato pudding, right? I just stand back there. Sorry. Right, in the second one, I think this is a brand out of Barbados. So you have your pancake mix, you have your flours, a different type of flour. You can have things like cake mix. In this one over here, this cassava. I'm not quite I think it's the same. No, it's a different brand. Oh, I think it's from Jamaica, right? So Jamaica cassava flour, and you can use it to make dumplings and so on. We have so much things here. Why are we not doing that? So in this picture, this is breadfruit chocolate cake mix. This was done by me. I did this with a group in Stubbs. So we dehydrated the breadfruit and the sweet potato. Well, we shred them, we did sun drying, then we grind them, and then I teach them how to make the chocolate cake mixes and pancake mixes and so on, right? So these others are from out of Tobago, my second home, right? So you would see things like waffle mix, you see pancake mix, you have dumpling mix, you have sponge cake mix, and I had the sponge cake mix, and there's also fruit cake mix by Island Spice, Spice Life. Trust me, it's delicious. They basically made the flour, the flour, and they created, the dehydrated the fruits and add everything in, and then you just have to come home and add your egg and oil and so on, and you're good to go, right? And this oh my God, why is this going back? So you have your dasheen mix and your plantain mix and so on, and you have cookies and all these sort of things. We have all them things here, and we leave them to spoil, and we then ball, oh, time hard. You making time hard for yourself, because time can never hard for me when I know to do half of these things. These are just some pictures that was done by a couple of my students years ago. Back in 2015, we had sweet potato cookies. This is breadfruit cake with a banana caramel sauce. This was done by a friend of mine for my students. These were done by me and my students. This one is sweet potato flour. This is used to make regular sweet bread, coconut sweet bread. With composite flour, you don't need it, so you mix it, right? This one is plantain flour. Plantain always sort of give you a more former, nice texture, harder to fall apart. This one above was pumpkin flour, so it was a pumpkin spice cake, right? So pepper value addition, I'm just going to show a small video. And in most of my videos that are on TikTok, you will be able to go through them and you would see everything that I basically put into when I'm making a product. I basically have nothing too high. Oh my God, the video didn't show up on this one. I will just resend it, right? So it was supposed to, I think when I save, I have a problem when I'm saving it, it causes the videos to disappear, right? So let me just, so this is just a recipe here for pepper sauce. Let me just pause for a minute. Let me just see if this is what happening with the rest. Then I can, you know, I can always send you all the, yeah, I could always send you all the video. Let me just pause and open the other presentation. I'm not quite sure if that's the problem. Or I saved the incorrect one. I'll just continue. Give me a second. No. I'll just continue with this one because I'm not sure what just happened there. Right, so these are some, let me continue from current slide. Right, so these are some mango products that you can make. There's mango leather, there is mango salad dressing. This is done by Anna in Sinkit. This is also her mango passion fruit jam, right? This is amcha powder made from green mango. There's also mango cheese done by Anna in Sinkit. And Anna, if you follow Anna page, you'll be amazed by some of the stuff that Anna do. I really did not remember to invite her this year for in the expo because my mind was not wrong that because I'm not taking part this year, but she came before to our expo here, right? These are some example of Dashin products. You can do things like jam, ice cream, flour, cheesecake, puncher cream, Dashin balls. Dashin balls is very delicious. Scallop Dashin, you know, you can make flour. There's a Dashin cereal that is tasting nice because it's done in Tobago. It has coconut in it. It's really, really lovely. It has dry fruits in it. You don't even have to eat it in cereal. You can basically just eat it in your hand as a like a granola, right? So these are not plain. These are right, they're not plain. Because I don't know, when I save it, I think something went wrong because my files are large. These would have, I would send them in the chat. These would basically show you. I went to, as I was talking about gastronomic tourism, I went to Blue Food Festival in Tobago. What I always want to be there for Blue Food Festival. Unfortunately, I'm never there, but I was able to be there last year for Blue Food Festival. So you got to see a lot of things made from Dashin wine, Dashin cake, Dashin bus up shot, Dashin fruit cake, which was very moist and lovely, Dashin garlic bread, a lot of wide range of things that were made from Dashin, right? So cocoa value addition. I just want to spend a little time talking about cocoa in order to get nice tasting cocoa sticks. One of the things that you can do, because when you ferment cocoa, it takes away the bitter taste from it. So it has more like a nice caramel, fruity, nice tasting cocoa. So you would have this smelling like Butterfinger per se. So fermentation is very important. So you can ferment your cocoa in a bucket. So instead of you bust it and wash it and put it to sun it, you basically bust it, put it in a bucket, right? This bucket can have like a bit of hose underneath, put a piece of planting banana leaf on top, or if you have a crocus, and then you cover it, and it drips for those days. You mustn't go over 8 days, so you can ferment it, and you would see the difference in your taste of your cocoa. And that is what they normally do when you're going to make chocolate. The nice eating chocolate, you must ferment it. You just can't cut your cocoa and sun dry it and thinking you're going to have nice chocolate nibs. And you can smell the nibs when it's finished roasting. It smells nice and chocolatey. So fermenting it is very important. This page is just to show some value addition product from cocoa. So, and to the top here is my cocoa rum, right? So cocoa rum, clear, nice, right? So it's here at the top, and I did a collaboration with Vincent and Chocolate a couple of years back just to promote their cocoa powder. So from the cocoa powder, I made a cocoa rum cream, and I use my cocoa rum and spice rum in it. So this is it. So it's cocoa rum cream or kiss me, spice cocoa rum cream or kiss me. To the bottom is my cocoa wine. I assisted a student when she wanted to do a creation of blends of teas. So this was cocoa tea with a hint of pepper, because you know pepper would help it to absorb, and it would the pepper actually gives it a kick. So yeah, so to the top here, this is chocolate made by me, white chocolate and dark chocolate, and to the bottom, bonbons also made by me, right? So value addition to ginger. Ginger is a very important commercial crop. I'm getting close to finish. Commercial crop, and you know the gingerol inside is what helps with your tummy ache when you have your cramps during that time of the month. So things you can do with ginger: you can turn dry ginger into grounded powder, so you'll have seasoning, tea bags, capsules. You can do candied ginger, ginger and brine. And when you have ginger and brine, you're going to choose ginger that are not fully matured as yet, so about 7 months, 6 months. So you strip that and you put it in brine, and you can take that now and you can put it between your pasta when you're making spaghetti, and it has a lovely taste, right? You can do ginger syrup, you can do ginger flakes, you can do ginger infused coconut oil, like what Kelly's does. You could do ginger salad dressing, which is very delicious, right? You can do beverages, ginger sauce. Ginger sauce is very nice on your turkey if you mix it along with a little bit of sorrel sauce as well, right? You could do ginger jams and jellies and cookies and ginger wine and so on, right? So obviously these videos would not play, right? So these videos was basically showing you step by step of me creating dark chocolate, white chocolate, and creating bonbons, right? So as I said, I will just post them in the chat after. Then you have here, you have capsules. I do make capsules for myself. So in my capsules, I will use things like, yes, I have a capsule filler. So I'll do things like turmeric, especially when we had COVID. I would use things like turmeric. I would use things like moringa. I would use ginger, cinnamon, and so on, right? To make capsules, right? Knock on wood. My only problem is that I'm heavy, but no diabetes, no high blood pressure, none of these sort of things, because I kind of believe in using natural stuff, right? So here we have Kelly's oil that are infused with things like rosemary, garlic, ginger, and so on. This is a ginger syrup done by a student a while back, right? These are the blended teas, and I mean, we import too much teas and we have things here, and I love spice chai, so I make my own spice chai tea, right? This is exotic arousal, which is having things like coffee arousal, because having coffee, ginger, cinnamon, and bay leaf. You have island blend, which is something like you have lemongrass, ginger, turmeric, and orange peel. You have love in a mug, which is sorrel, ginger, orange peel, and bay leaf. And then you have your golden tea, which is things like turmeric, sting and nettle, neem, bay leaf to mask that flavor, and also cinnamon, right? These pictures are some examples of other things that you can do. Here you have plantain fries. This is passion fruit salad dressing done by me. There's a pone pack. Pone pack means it's cassava grated and water, and you just add it to your pan and you bake, right? These are breadfruit granola and sweet potato granola, basically done in St. Lucia. You have dashing fries out of Tobago. You have cassava fruit cake out of Tobago. You have smoked tuna out of Tobago. You have mango jam and sea grape jam out of Tobago, and you have corn fish locally done, right? This is just some example of porridge mix and chocolate cake breadfruit mix. Breadfruit chocolate cake mix is breadfruit flour mix chocolate cake, right? So breadfruit chocolate cake mix, right? You have passion fruit salad dressing. This was my first time years ago making banana granola bar, sorry, not granola bar, banana granola. So it was made from oats and granola, oats and banana and pieces of coconut. So it was really, really delicious. This is coconut rum cream, something I make at Christmas as well. These are some other examples of things that you can do. Dehydrated mango, coconut chips, coconut flour. Coconut flour is very nice when you're making some cookies, right? You can do, this was a project that I did whilst I was doing my studies. So I did this, as I said, from the comfort of my own home. So you can do a lot of things. You just have to find ways and means of utilizing what you have. This is Wildcraft sea moss amchar powder mix. So basically, I got the fresh sea moss out of my row. I washed it, I dried it. I was fascinated by the different colors because I always thought that sea moss was only brown, but then I was told in order to bleach it, what you can do, you tie it in a bag, blah, 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 those sort of things. And I dried them, so I got the different colors and I blend them using my simple NutriBullet, right? I sun dry these and then I blend my sea moss. I blend my sea moss with the different colors. So I had this and this, but these were just the remains before. This is what remained after sieving. So I use a finer part, right? Then I got my green mango, right? I wash it, peel it, and now I realizing that I could have used the skin. I wasn't thinking along that time. I just wanted to get my product out the way. So I peel it, I measured it using a caliper. I use my air fryer oven. I put in my thermometer. This took me a long period of time because I had to ensure that it doesn't go above 60 degrees. I kept it about 50, 55 degrees Celsius. So I had to keep restarting. It took me a few hours, but my mango was dried. I showed the difference and then I blend it, I sift it. I had my mango powder. Then I did my mixture where I use my sea moss, my mango powder, and then I grind my different spices. So I did things like allspice, clove, cinnamon stick, orange peel, cardamom, and then I mix it together, create a nice mix. So this, you would just add water, you add milk, and you basically mix it. So it's a sea moss mango powder mix, right? Fruit wines, I think we can make fruit wines in St. Vincent a lot. We can make from coffee to breadfruit to pineapple to lemongrass to cocoa, whatever the case may be, dasheen and so on. I even had garlic wine in Tobago. So all these things that we can think about using to make fruit wines, right? This video obviously is not going to show. I should have checked before when I saved it. As I said, I would send them in the chat after. This video over this side is when I made cheese. This one is mango hot sauce. These are just some examples of wine. You saw them before, what I did. Filtering your wine is important. So this is it before filtering. This is the filter machine here. This is the small one I started with, and this is the one that I use now. This has a 3-panel. Eventually later on, if I increase in my production, I would use a 6-panel one. So from this to this, right? Some other things that you can do. So you can, one of the things I would like to do is dehydrated ground provision pack, so like a disaster pack. So in terms of dehydrating, put sweet potato dasheen to the thickness of a slice, so that when I cook it back, it would be as like a slice of sweet potato, slices dasheen and those sort of things. These are things that you can dehydrate, store in event of a storm and those sort of things, right? Other things you can do are pickles, sauce, sun-dried tomatoes, banana flour, banana puree, banana chips, banana jam, jelly, banana vinegar, using the skin so you don't waste nothing, banana granola, very delicious, banana cream liquor, banana rum cream, banana wine. So you could do a wide range of punch cream, from dasheen to coconut to breadfruit to banana to pumpkin. And I'm not listing these here because I could list them. I normally only list things that I did before. So you can do things like liqueur, sorrel liqueur, passion fruit liqueur. You can create powders such as turmeric, mango, pigeon peas, sorrel, pepper, tomato, salad dressing, and vinaigrette. And my favorite I normally make is my passion fruit. Pumpkin is okay. The mango is lovely. The ginger is lovely, but you have to know what you're using that with. Avocado is nice and creamy. So these are some examples. So in the bottom here, you have different pepper sauce that I saw in different islands and the dashing cereal. There's in the other picture here, we have freeze dry mango. So you know how the marshmallow in Lucky Charms is be like spongy and airy. So this is freeze dry. This is a different machine rather than using a dehydrator. I love it. Perfect. I would like to invest in a freeze dry machine, not for creating production, but just for training and showing people and those sort of things. I am good with my rum. I would experiment with anything else and share it with anybody else. I do not want to be in many different stuff. Right, so my rum and my cocoa wine, that's it for me. These are rum creams made from beet and sorrel and those sort of things. Chips, one of the things that I say we copy a lot of things, but we don't copy as it relates to certain things. Some of the chips that we often import are things, and they're not even real chips because some of them are powder added water to make your Lays and so on. Right, so these chips, there are different flavors like cheese and barbecue. We can do the same thing. So with our banana chips, you can make our cheese powder, import cheese powder and add it to them. Your barbecue mix, you could make that mix using your paprika and other things to make your barbecue powder. So these are things that you can use so you can reduce the individuals from actually buying all those Lays and Pringles and other nonsense, and you can actually provide what we have here locally, right? So the Caribbean fruit cake I was talking about, this is it, the mix. There's cassava wedge for making fries. I had cassava hash brown, and if you know about hash brown, it's normally made with English potato. This was very delicious. We have different dry rubs, right? Based on shadow benny, it is pimento and so on. What I tried, which was really kind of like amazing, was they use passion fruit and make like a passion fruit cream liqueur, like a rum, like a puncher cream. So you use passion fruit, add milk, and it was the tartness and the milk. It tastes really, really good. I had pigeon peas delights where from them I had things like pigeon peas barra to make the doubles and those sort of things. Lovely, right? And this slide is just my stuff. So to the top here, what I normally do with my small bottles, I would do for little events, either weddings, if I'd have a graduation, whatever the case may be. So these, I would do those, provide the tags, put the name on whatever the event is. This was from a collaboration where I made chocolate rum and raisin ice cream using my rum. So I soaked the raisins in pepper rum and those sort of things. And the third one is a rum teeny made from the cocoa chocolate powder, cocoa powder, and rum and so on. And the fourth one is La Soufre, chocolate eruption or Hell's Gate. It's done with a pepper rum. Well, it's done with eruption, which is rum made from rum infused with scorpion pepper, right? So this is my Soufre line. I have a fourth one. It's just not theirs yet. As I said, I haven't done any bottling and anything since I started my studies. I'm more focused on that and other projects. I never out of rum, by the way. I always have rum, so I always have a consistency. And as I said, my mark is at the cruise ship boat at the Hotel Association. I do package for weddings, as I said before, and Father's Day, Valentine's, and so on, right? And this slide is just a wrap up. When you're doing things like chocolate and you're creating bonbon to excess, you can do things like creating a bark. I normally put my famous sorrel cake here. That's, you know, those things already. So to wrap up to say, agro-processing industry is important to the economy, not only through addition of productive capacity, but it also provides jobs through continued growth and expansion. In addition to the activities the industry provides for reduce import and strengthen our manufacturing sector. It also ease of access into the international market because it's not going into raw form, it's going in a processed form. So it's easy to get your stuff into another country. And that's a wrap. And I went over 29 minutes. I maybe put everybody to sleep by now. I am so sorry. But any
We
questions?
are away.
Any
I
questions?
think you're trying to put everybody to sleep, but everybody not sleeping because the presentation alone is it's quite a mouthful and it's really lovely. We enjoy it.
Thank you.
Awesome
So
presentation.
that's it in a nutshell as it relates to agro-processing. And that's my second love. It wasn't my first. I got into agro-processing out of one boredom. If who know me know, I took care of my grandparents for like 18 years of my life. So when my grandmother passed in 2014, boredom hit because I'm used to coming home, dealing, checking sugar pressure, everything as it. So when she passed, it basically left a void, and I needed to find something to fill that I was always busy doing stuff. So I started experimenting and so on, and then here I am today. So I decided to do MSc in value addition, and my supervisor wants me to upgrade it to an MPhil and hopefully a PhD later on. I'm not sure about all of that because I really don't like doing all these book work and what's not. I'm more of a field person, so you'll catch me outside experimenting, doing something of the sort. Agriculture is my first love. I grew up in agriculture. It chose me. It chose me, right? So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
One question, the yeast for wines, is it sold here?
No, I normally bring in all my yeast off of Amazon, and I really was a little bit in thing tonight because I normally bring them here, but they're stuck to in the kitchen. So based on if you're going to use and I left a lot of stuff out of the presentation because we would have been here till 10 o'clock or so. If you can ask Michelle, right? So if you're going to use make a full-bodied wine, and when you're talking like a cocoa wine or oh, that proper thing. Oh, jamun, right? So you will use rogue yeast, red. So it's for a red wine and those sort of thing. If you're using something, making something like a passion fruit or damza, those sort of thing, you can use the blanc or you can use the munchet yeast. But there are different kind of yeast. And once you read, I can basically send you information on the different types of yeast that I've used. The most easiest yeast to use is the EC 1118. You can use that in any wine, and if you are just starting out to do wine production, that is the easiest wine to basically use. You wouldn't have any error.
I experiment a little bit with wines.
Okay.
And another thing, dasheen. I had dasheen chips some time ago, and it itched my throat. So I try to stay away from dasheen products. I
So
don't know if
dasheen has an acridity, right? And that is how it basically repels any sort of insect from damaging it, and that is reduced when it's cooked. So if it's not cooked properly, well, I've known dasheen to be cooked properly, and some people still have the irritation towards it. But once it's cooked, it reduces that acridity, and it doesn't cause the scratching of your throat, your hand, and those sort of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a lot of things that we can do here because we have so many different fruits, vegetables, etc. But we have to import the machinery, like the tools you mentioned tonight.
Yes.
But what I find is that customs, the charges, they're too astronomical. It's ridiculous. I just got some stuff today and I almost cried because I couldn't believe it's just a little box, but no barrel, nobody ever paid that amount for a barrel or anything. I mean, it's just ridiculous. How are we supposed to start up our businesses?
It's equipment for starting your business?
Yes.
Okay. there's a lot of red tapes you have to jump through if you want to get it come in at if you want to get reduced, you have to fill out form, go to agriculture, this, that. But I have my ways and means of going around it. So you can message me privately because I don't know if any custom officer is here and I really can't deal with it. But I'm gonna be honest, when I brought in my stuff to do my yard, in terms of my pineapples, I basically had applied. It was a run around, and they were there for a while, and I think they got fed up, and they just tell me take them out of the customs. Yeah. So
okay,
got to weigh them down for a bit. Right. Because I paid a lot of money, but I didn't plan to pay all that money for clearing. I brought in my bottles as well from China, and I don't remember paying more than $300 to clear them. And I have roughly almost 3,000 bottles. Yeah. So you have to find ways and means and talk and ask, and because you cannot be doing agro-processing and spending a lot of money on bottles because to bring in stuff, because these bottles are not so locally, right? So I normally bring these in out of China. Any other questions?
Yes. Good night, Ms. Edwards.
Good night.
Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
In terms of acquiring your phone pack, how can I'm interested in that one.
In making that, so you can make pone?
Yes, I can.
Right.
I actually make it from scratch.
Right. So once you know how to do it, what you have to focus on now is preventing things like enzymatic browning, which I can walk you through what you can use. Simple thing like when you're peeling, put them in citric acid and those sort of things to prevent enzymatic browning. You grate and you have everything done, and you basically freeze it. So the person who buy them can basically just defrost it and utilize it. Just give me a second. Let me go for something. I remember I was talking about, I spoke about a past student who's going to do things like soup packs, right? So this is hers. This has been in my fridge for over a few weeks, right? So this is her first try. What I want to tell her, she has to do a bit more drainage so she could prevent this iciness. She needs to vacuum seal it a bit more so it doesn't have all this space inside. So this has in pumpkin, banana, Edos, slice the way Vincent should like it, but I don't like my stuff them sliced so big. So because I can't do soup with these big Edos. I like my Edos cut a little bit smaller. So this is her soup pack, right? So this is her first attempt. There are some bits of errors, so she has to ensure that this is sucked properly. So she just brought in a vacuum sealer. So she did this before with a sealer. So she just brought in a double sealer, vacuum sealer that double seals. So she would redo this, and this is something that she's going to put on the market.
Awesome. But you don't have any of your phone pack available?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Okay, if I do an experiment, it's just my experiment to just share with somebody or to try to see if it would actually taste good or something like that. But the phone pack that I would have had access to was basically done by my sister who's living in Tobago, right? They are the ones who would be involved in those sort of things and what's not. So they experimented a lot of ground provision. What I would do with things like cake mix and those sort of things, dry cake mix, yeah, but I haven't, pone is not something that I'm used to making. Sweet potato pone, yes, but not pone. So she would be the one with the pone mix. Yeah, so if you are accustomed to do it, I can guide you in terms of preventing enzymatic browning, but in terms of taste and what's what you're used to, you would have to experiment for a bit. So when you're developing a product, you just can't put a product out there today. You have to keep doing testing and before you can actually come up with a right method, and then you can put it out there.
Okay.
Ms. Edwards, I just want to find out, where are your rooms available?
At cruise ship boats at the Hotel Association outlet.
Okay, because I like to make black cakes and have different rums. I want to experiment with the different rums to see how.
Where are you located though? Where are you living?
I live in the Annisvale Villa area.
Okay, well, I live in Annisvale. You could get them directly from me at home.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Your contact will be in the chat?
Yeah, I'm in the chat.
Okay,
when I
so
post when I post videos, then you can know which one is me. Yeah.
You're right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. So if no other questions, Latoya, it's over to you because we've gone over 39 minutes.
We want to say thank you. It was awesome. This was enlightening, and I want to personally, and I'm certain the rest of the group, want to say thank you for sharing with us so freely. You know, there was no reservation. You didn't hold back in sharing your knowledge with us, and I really do appreciate that. So I just want to say thank you so much, and we wish you all the best in your studies. And please go for the PhD. I think you are already there. I think you are already there. You just need the paper.
And another thing, I would send this so that Latoya, wait, I didn't, my camera is off, Lord. I would send this booklet so that Latoya can share it with everyone. It's basically food safety and hygiene. I know Theo would touch on a bit of it, but this was a booklet that was developed by me and some folks at the college, and I can share it with you. So you'll get a soft copy. So it basically have like the checklist, like when you're going into the kitchen, what you should do, close to shoes, hair net, remove jewelry, such as those sort of things, clean apron, those sort of things. Yes.